Right, okay, we are live and people can see us.
Okay. And can you please a little bit talk about yourself, Rationalizer? You have a distinct look, especially your mustache.
Well, I used to be a strongman in a circus, and I gave up on lifting the weights because of a bad back.
That's the first thing that mustache always makes me think of is the old-timey circus strongman. And then I'm reminded of the Family Guy thing where they're doing the squats, singing the song, eggs and steak and eggs, that's what you should have for breakfast. Delicious.
Yeah,
anyway.
The moustache is associated either with strong men in circuses or men who kidnap women and tie them to rail tracks and wait for a steam train to run them over.
Okay, now, I could have sworn that you told us earlier that we'd gone live. Am I to assume that you're going to edit this out?
We have gone live.
Okay, fair enough. Willkommen, bienvenue everyone to another episode of the Gin and Tonic Show. I'm your host, Almighty Atheismo. Today joining us is our special guest, Edip Yuksel, who had to get up just at the moment that we started the introduction. But also with us is the Rationalizer, who you know well. If you'd like to join us at any point during the show, please send a Skype contact request or a comment if you already have shared the contact details with the Gin and Tonic Show account. Just send it to the Gin and Tonic Show on Skype. Also, we read comments from the chat. If you're shy and you don't want to come on, you can just send the question in text to me on Skype. I'll ask it. But people who are willing to come on camera and ask their questions in person or join the panel get preference. Everyone who calls in is advised that we are being broadcast live over Blog TV and recorded for a later upload on YouTube. Okay, I think that's it. Mr. Yuksel, I'm sorry, Rash.
Just say anything first. When Atheismo talks, we're getting an echo back through your speakers. You got your headphones in?
Yeah. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah, as soon as those go in with the echo. Right, okay. No echo there. That's brilliant, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So, Edip, why don't you, today our discussion is about the role of Hadiths in Islam and the rising Quran-only interpretation of Islam. So why don't you give us a brief background about yourself and what it is you do, what it is you stand for and are promoting.
And first, I would like to know, I missed perhaps the previous minute, who is Rational Recorder over there? I see a question mark.
That's just a dummy account that Rationalizer set up to record us.
Yeah, that's
Okay, fantastic. We are 3 people. It will be hopefully a good conversation. I wonder, how do you understand my accent?
It's fine. We've had much thicker on the show. Okay.
If you have problem with understanding some words, please give me, if it is keyword. If you don't understand, please let me know. I was the son of a Sunni scholar, a very prominent scholar in Turkey. His name is Sadrettin Yuksel. And my family, both sides, were very prominent politically and religiously, both my father's side and my mother's side. And I was raised in a very kind of religious environment. My uncles had been, they were in politics. They were, at one time, I remember 2 of my uncles, they were in National Congress because of their religious leadership in eastern part of Turkey. And my father, I remember that we had always from very different religious groups we would have in our homes, the leaders. And I was together, I went to school with Prime Minister of Turkey, Tayyip Erdogan. We were friends in, after the same school we went for about 12 years. Parochial school, Istanbul İmam Hatip Lisesi, and then afterwards in the party, Milli Selamet Party, and there we were together for a while in the youth organization. But I went, my brother was killed, assassinated by nationalist, Turkish racist. He was a very legendary leader of youth organization in Turkey at that time. There were 3 youth organizations, communist, nationalist, and religious. We had like civil war. We were fighting for territory in universities, in neighborhoods. And then after he was assassinated, basically I had to fill his shoes. I became the leader of the youth organization. In fact, I was invited to Iran secretly just 1 year after revolution by the Pastaran. Pastaran is basically the police, and right now the one that really govern the country through force. Abu Sharif, I met him in Tehran, and then they wanted to take me to Khomeini. I didn't want to. He was my idol at that time, but somehow I was taking my job so seriously in Tehran. I had only 2 weeks. Anyway, and then I wanted to kind of import Iranian revolution in Turkey. I was gullible, but I was aspiring to peace, justice. Those issues, I thought the Sharia that I believed, the Sunni Sharia, would bring what I'm looking for. And there were some points I was right. I stand by those values. I never promoted violence, though I was in a group. There were some violent segments within our groups. Then I was arrested the night of the military coup in 1980. For about 4 years, I was in prison. There were 1 year continuous torture, physical and mental. Yeah, it was a very bad time, but I kind of survived those tortures, I think, through controlling my mind, but not allow them to hurt me mentally. After I got from prison, I became best-selling author in a very young age. The government banned my right to continue education, higher education. Well, my crime was 2 articles critical of Turkish government. For 2 articles, I got 6 years in prison, but I was released early for 4 years. And then I became best-selling author. I was promoting basically the same thing. But my encounter with Dr. Rashad Khalifa while I was in military service, they drafted me to military, forced me to go to military after prison a few years later. There, my communication with him through snail mail basically changed my mindset. It took a while, but he was patient. He was responding me with the verses of the Quran while I was making my point through Hadiths. And he was responding with the verses Quran and reason, not very long, but to the point. I could read between the lines. And in 1st of July 1980, after receiving his book, Quran, Hadith, and Islam, it is the ugliest, the cover, I have it here, somewhere I put it here. The ugliest cover, but it is the most powerful book, I believe, in our modern time, that brings attention to the message of the Quran and show the contradiction between Hadith and Sunnah and the teaching of the Quran. That night, I repented to God, I cried, and it was the moment that I decided I will devote my religion or my system, I have problem with the word even religion, to God alone. And then afterwards, basically, but before that, it was really the mathematical code of the Quran that prepared me to that, because mathematics is really not a matter of opinion or culture. It is a universal language that the creator of the universe, if there is a creator of the universe, employs in the universe. It is the language that we can understand the behavior of atoms and galaxies and everything. And with this discovery of Code 19 in 1974, in Chapter 74, it was discovered in 1974 by Khalifa, it really opened a new age. I do believe that we are living that change. It is a huge transformation happening, but that many people, in fact, who I see, who say Quran alone, some of them hate Rashad Khalifa because they have misconception about him. They are not well informed. In fact, they got either indirectly this idea from Rashad Khalifa, because he provided very powerful argument, theological and philosophical argument against Hadith and Sunnah. First time in modern history. I'm not saying it is new, because this argument happened just after Prophet Muhammad and later became a major issue. But this Quran alone, of course, according to the Quran, we understand Muhammad and his followers followed the Quran alone. There are many verses implying this and clearly stating this. And also from the history of Hadith, when you look at it, there are many Hadiths stating this. In those Hadith books, you can find anything. And give me one more minute, I give you just few Hadiths. The most celebrated, and not the most celebrated, the most authentic Hadith, which one should be? Because they put Hadith according to their criteria to categories. This is Sahih, this is Hasan, this is Mursal, this is Mutawatir, this is Qudsi, whatever. They have their own categories, and each has their own criteria. Therefore, they all come up with different categorization of this hearsay, whether it is authentic or not. It is all based on their preconception or arbitrary rules. But if there is one single hadith that must be authentic, it should be Muhammad's sermon in Mecca, which is considered the last sermon, Hajjatul Wada. I don't know whether you heard about it.
Yes.
In that last sermon, hold on, I need to, some people send me, many people are sending me, I should say, do not disturb, okay. Hopefully they will not send me anything. And in that last sermon, which is according to these hadith books, Sunni sources have 6 hadith books besides the Quran, and there are many, many other secondary books, and also jurisprudence, Sunni jurisprudence. So many volumes of religion is lost. You cannot really define what is religion. And in that hadith, this must be the most, according to them, 100,000 Sahaba, means Prophet Muhammad's friends, listen to that hadith. Prophet Muhammad came to Mecca finally as a victor, the city that he was forced to flee. And then the last and the most important statement in this hadith comes in 3 different versions. One says, I leave you Quran, follow the Quran, which is in harmony with the Quranic verses. In another one says, I leave you Quran and my Sunnah, my kind of behavior, attitude, tradition, and follow both of them. In the third version, it says, I leave you Quran and Ahl Bayti, means my family, and follow both. In fact, in these so-called Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmizi, Ibn Majah, Ibn Hanbal, Abu Dawud, the 6 books, the most repeated one is the Quran. Only Quran. I leave you Quran and follow the Quran. But there are these other versions too. Interestingly, Sunni picked this one, the middle version, Quran and Hadith and Sunnah, and the other pick Ahl Bayt. Now, if you are an outsider, look at it. The common Quran, but one says Sunnah, the other says Ahl Bayt. Well, we have 2 sects fighting with each other over who is the writer. It is very easy to see the scenario that these 2 are later additions. And also the word Sunnah and Hadith, prophetically, they are mentioned in the Quran is very different than what they say. The word Hadith means saying word. Very interestingly, the word Hadith, when it is mentioned for the Quran, it says Ahsan al-Hadith, the best Hadith. But when it is mentioned for other than the Quran, it is in negative context and rejected. It is a prophecy of the Quran. For example, فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. This must be in chapter 45, in the beginning of chapter 45. Which hadith, which word will they follow after God and His signs? Very interesting. And there are many. This is not a made-up hadith says. Or the last verse of chapter 12. Many. In fact, in the Quran, in two verses, the word hadith is used in relation to Prophet Muhammad's word, and in both of them it is negative. In one of them, those who listen to those hadiths, Muhammad's hadiths, are criticized for listening his private statement. In the second one, another occurrence of that hadith, those who are distributing, delivering, narrating these hadiths, they are also criticized. Prophetic. And the word sunnah too, the same way. The word sunnah means law. Throughout the Quran, it is used for God's sunnah. Sunnatullah, sunnatullah, sunnah. It is God's system. You don't find change in God's system, the Quran says. وَلَن تَجْدَ لِسُنَّةِ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا. There is nowhere in the Quran you don't see Sunnati Muhammad. In fact, God's system about the previous generations, if they do aggress, they do wrong, God punishes them through the system. Anyway, after this, when I rejected, I had to write a book about it because I was promoting the false, the distorted version of Islam. And then I wrote a book. Interesting question. It was a first volume was one of the best-selling one, and then the second volume I started expressing my criticism towards my religion, which is Sunni religion. And I knew what will happen. In fact, in the back of the book, I said, I know that I have two options. Either be a hypocrite, continue become a best-selling author promoting this falsehood, or criticize my own religion and share it with others. I know the consequence will be I will be excommunicated, I will be considered a heretic, and perhaps I will lose everything, perhaps my life. But I have to be honest. And this is in the back of my book. You can find it. Should I show you? One second.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, this one in the back of the book in Turkish. This was my picture. This is interesting question number 2. Anyway.
So now let me quickly ask you. You said you'd gotten obviously a lot of backlash for your newfound stance.
Oh, yeah.
I hope this isn't too personal, but did not members of your own family disown you and declare you an apostate?
Oh yeah, because I was considered as a hero. I was very daring in the martial court, while they were trying me. This became news because all others, they were very scared. There were some other scholars, because of their criticism of the government, they would try to kind of interpret their words and to get less punishment. Over there, my lawyer, first time which I see in the courtroom, they wouldn't allow us even to meet anyone. It was very bad situation. And my lawyer over there, a few minutes before judges, 3 judges, military judges came, asked me, he told me, try to be interpreting those criticism, your desire to bring Sharia in Turkey, try to get less punishment. I said, no. There's a Turkish proverb, tükürdüğümü yalamam. I will not lick my spit. I said, this is what I said, and I stood for it. I defended myself. They allowed me about 20, 30 minutes. And I was honest, but unfortunately misguided in many ways. I started from Socrates and from Galileo. I said, I'm not in their level, but the same issue, and you are wrong, because whatever I said, it is my belief. I expressed it honestly. I didn't hurt anyone. You should not be punishing me because I said this. I said, unfortunately, you have 2 choices. Either follow the laws, which are oppressive in front of you, or resign from your job. But I do have the second trial. They sent me 6 years as a reward. Therefore, I was well known because of my brother also, Metin Yuksel. Still, people, after 30 years of his assassination in 1979, at age 20, they are celebrating him, and his name is given to some parks, and he is well revered because of his passion and leadership in that time. And as I said, I was friend with today's Turkish right now President Ahmed Davutoğlu, the foreign, what's called Minister of Foreign. He was also my friend from Bosphorus University. My book, of course, created big disappointment, a sense of betrayal, and then they all united against me. I put the clips of those newspapers, front page. Edip is an apostate. Edip is diverted, and my father's statement was a little bit exaggerated. My father wrote the first article publicly in a magazine, and criticizing my work, but also insulting me. Of course, to me, it was false criticism. And they gave me one chance, one of the magazines, to respond in, not the same magazine, another magazine. I responded my father, and then afterwards, I did not have any way to respond others. And others who were my friends, now they are prominent authors, some of them political leaders, they start publicly writing articles condemning, all now united. Many factions in Turkey, they were hostile towards each other. The Milli Selamet Partisi, later Refah, and then Tayyip Erdogan, the party in their newspapers condemned me as a heretic. The implication means should be killed. And then Nurcus, Fethullah Gülen, and his things, they also condemned me. And many other groups, orders, religious orders, they fight for power over there, but they're all united.
Can I back you up a little bit?
Go ahead.
You said you've been to prison twice, yes?
Yes, twice.
What were you actually charged with? Because I think it gives an interesting glimpse into how hotly contested these issues are in Turkey. What exactly did they charge you with?
The first charge in 1980, when the military coup, they charged me with violating the law, criminal law of 163. 163, anyone who promotes bringing theocracy in Turkey should be punished with this many years in prison. And I was promoting, and I think, yes. But that law, they later eliminated that law.
So you even though the law, I would agree the law was unjust, but in hindsight, you're ready to plead guilty, and you were at the time.
Of course, as an idea, I was misguided. I thought that Sharia would bring freedom and stuff. And many people who promoted Iranian revolution, they had this kind of distorted version idea that supposedly this Islam, because we were raised with the stories of early Islam, how it is great and stuff, well, then we were introduced this Sharia as the early Islam. And we got blinded about the problems with that. In fact, if that Sharia had come, I would be killed because of my later belief. In fact, that time beliefs also, some of the beliefs I wouldn't believe, that Sharia would come, I would end up in prison like, who is this, I'm sorry, the first Iranian prime minister and president.
I don't recall his name either. But are you saying that Edip Yuksel from 1980?
I thought that the Islam that he.
I'm sorry. Are you saying that Edip Yuksel from 1980 would put to death Edip Yuksel in 2012?
Oh, of course. But even Edip Yuksel at that time, if Sharia come, because I was not really believing every hadith. Even when I follow hadith, I was still more selective. But if that Sharia come, that Sharia is so oppressive, dogmatic, many ways they would find a way to kill me. Therefore, anyway, but it was wrong. But I was honest. I was just expressing my view. I think the government was wrong too by punishing me for that.
There's a movie coming out with a plot like that with Bruce Willis. I don't know if anyone has seen the ads for it. But what about the second time you went to prison? The coup was over by then, yeah?
Yes. The second one, I was released 3.5 years later. I was released after 6-year punishment. In fact, before that, I had about 10 or 15 times arrest, detention with police. Police wanted to always put me in prison, I'd say jail, and then release me for petty stuff. I was very active organizer. With one notice, in few hours, I would collect thousands of people in any part of Istanbul. In fact, just before, a few months before this arrest during military coup, I wanted to, when Afghanistan was invaded by Russia, I wanted to go there with my friends. And then I sent a message to my group, my youth organization. I said, anyone wants to go to Afghanistan, let's meet in Shahzadebashi Jami. It is in Fatih region, a big mosque, Shahzadebashi Jami mosque. And then I gave them the time. I was arrested the night before. And unfortunately, I had come just from Iran with Ali Shariati's cassette. I love Ali Shariati. Still, I love him. He was one of the few intellectuals in the Muslim world in modern times that can think for himself. He has his own blind spots too. And then later I learned about 300 young men got their backpack to join Afghani movement. They got to the mosque waiting for me. Of course, I couldn't because I was in police detention. And then my plan was, I put them in bus, I go to the airport, hijack airplanes, demand from the Turkish government that we'll go to Afghanistan, we'll fight against Russians. And I was that active. And but after this, after I was released from prison, I became best-selling author. Well, I was well-known already. And then they didn't allow me to continue my education at Bosphorus University. It was a very beautiful university. Anyway, then I continued writing. But meanwhile, in military, when that change happened, there were a case against me about one of the books. The first volume of the book that I showed you, Interesting Question. It was really a kind of mild book. There was nothing really obviously saying Sharia stuff. It was philosophical question, light religious question, fun questions. I had gathered survey. Perhaps I was the first author in Turkey conducted a survey in the back of my previous book. And they would send me, I received thousands of letters from my readers, mostly university students. And then I knew what they are taught. I said, the questions that you are discussing among yourself, send me those questions. And then I collected about 30 of them, put answers. It became very top best-selling book there. And then they charged me because of that book. In fact, that time I had already changed. I was not promoting anymore this kind of Islam. In fact, I was for secularism. But the government still following me from back, and they got me in the court, accusing me for promoting Sharia. In fact, they quoted one quotation from Encyclopedia Britannica I had used in one of my articles there. It was just misguided. And for 6 months, they kept me there, just even unjustly according to their own law, but they later released me.
So wait, you're just the possession of a book having to do with Islam. You were basically on probation the whole time, and anything could violate it, it seems.
They were following me carefully. They thought I am still troublemaker, and then therefore that book, they became nitpicking about that book, which that book was not really anything even contradicting their law, but even they didn't know the changes happening in me, but I was there, and again, I had a lot of different experiences in military and stuff. Basically, ultimately, when Rashad declared that the 2 verses in the end of chapter 9 do not belong to the Quran, that became a major news in the Muslim world. You did not hear, you were too young. In 1986 or 88, 89. And that time became news, and Salman Rushdie event. Have you heard about Salman Rushdie?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
He's much more well-known than Rashad Khalifa. But as a matter of fact, so what exactly, because I think a lot of our listeners and viewers might not be as familiar with Rashad Khalifa, what exactly was the controversy that he found himself in? Because everybody knows about Salman Rushdie and the Satanic verses, but...
I'll tell you that story and then come back.
Okay.
When Salman Rushdie declared basically to be killed, and Khomeini that time put $1 million, not Khomeini, a foundation in Iran, something, or maybe Iranian government, I forgot the detail, $1 million to be killed. And Khomeini also spoke loudly against him that he deserved to be killed. And he was on the crosshair of the Shiite. And Saudi Arabia, with the help from the United States, competing with Iran that time, still they are competing, still the United States want to use this dichotomy, this rivalry, Shiite and Sunni, to play the games. And Saudi Arabia needed to voice something, to have something about this issue. Therefore, they convened in 1988, I believe, from 38 so-called Muslim countries. They are far away from Islam. I can say United States internally, not foreign thing, much closer to Islam in many ways, about the freedom and other ways than those countries. And the 38 so-called scholars came together about Salman Rushdie affair in Riyadh. And then they declared as a fatwa, Bin Baz was the leader. Bin Baz, the Saudi cleric, who was the chief cleric until he died, the guy who said that the earth is not rotating around the sun. Whoever claims that the earth rotating around the sun should be killed. This was a book published in 1975 by the University of Medina. I have the copy of the book. Can you imagine this guy? University director in 1975. Russia went to space in 1957. United States landed on the moon in 1969. This guy in that book claims that if the earth is rotating around the sun, the places of the trees and mountains and cities will change, and the Qibla will change. Everything will get confused. It's not happening, therefore the earth cannot be rotated. Anyone who claims this is a murtad, if a Muslim. Murtad, and specifically says his blood and his property will become halal, will become okay. And this guy's leadership, imagine, this is their leader, the stupid guy, who cannot even imagine that even get a ball and rotate things, the things are not messed up. He thinks that he's outside of the world.
Yeah.
If earth rotates, this happens. Anyway.
That guy needs a YouTube channel.
Well, he was blind.
Oh, well, literally?
Literally blind. He was also mentally blind. You know, Salafis. Salafis are the enemy of thinking, reason. Ibn Hanbal was one of the ones like Tertullian in Christian history. In Nicene Conference was led by Tertullian. He said any Christian who reads philosophy will be a blasphemy, should not read any book besides the Bible. This one of the guys, Ibn Hanbal, Ibn Taymiyyah, they have specifically against logic and reason. They despise. And this is the follower of that guy. And then these guys, they come together, these so-called clergymen. They said Rashad and Rushdie, both of them are apostates. Hi, Klingschor. Nice to meet you.
Oh, yes. This is one of our...
Okay, would you mind disabling and then re-enabling your video because it's frozen at this end?
Okay.
Okay, at any rate, so this... let's talk a little bit more about Rashad Khalifa because, again, he's someone I'm not too familiar with. I read briefly on him just now, and he was stabbed to death for his controversial views.
Yeah, after this declaration, fatwa by Ibn al-Baz and other 37 clergymen together, and he was declared, and soon, within less than a year, in January 1990, he was assassinated by a group who was Al-Fuqra, whose leader was in Pakistan and Afghanistan. We have information about this guy. And this was considered as Al-Qaeda's the first violence in the United States because they were related to Bin Laden. And Bin Laden was from Saudi Arabia. Basically, they executed this death fatwa against Rashad, and Rushdie survived.
So wait, he was murdered in Tucson?
In Tucson, Arizona, in his mosque, which we were together for 1 year. I worked together in mosque with him. And when I when I came to the mosque morning of 31st of January, I see police. But a few nights before, FBI came to the mosque. I was together with him after the night prayer. We were working late. He was on his translation, revising it. We were discussing all the times. And I was working on Turkish translation on Macintosh. He was using IBM compatible. And then police came. They said, we have information about a group in Salt Lake City, Utah. They are Al-Fuqara. They are kind of related to a group who is centered in Afghanistan and Pakistan. They want to kill you. We got some information and even the plan of the masjid. And they warned him. And then after them, Rashad told me, don't tell anyone in the mosque, in the masjid. People may get scared. And later I learned that he got a small gun from one of our friends. Early morning, he comes to the mosque to open. He was early riser. He would pray and then start working in his office. It was like a Swiss knife. He would make his own videos and even go to the post office, send books to people. Incredible, very efficient and versatile guy. And then he comes there and he's grabbed by two people and they stabbed him to death. And later, when on TV I was interviewed about this, I said there was FBI guys who came to the masjid 3 nights before. I was together with him, and later FBI denied that information somehow. I have little doubt, I'm not a conspiracy person, but I have little doubt whether the United States, Saudi Arabia wanted this, and United States gave him as a kind of, as a sacrifice, because please Saudi Arabia. And this was the, Ibn al-Baz had great influence in Saudi Arabia at that time. They wanted his head. Anyway, then when this problem happened, when he declared that these two verses do not belong to the Quran based on mathematical structure of the Quran, my first reaction to that was, I was in publishing house that time when I received that letter, I rejected him. I said, Rashad, you are out. You don't know what you are saying. The Quran is protected by God because the verse of the Quran says so. Well, that time my understanding, the protection of the Quran was paper and ink, like today's Sunnis, they think.
Yeah.
As it got protected that way, not as a numerical book, not as a knowledge. And then I had my own problem with that. I had incredible personal experience. And then when I declared, people start asking me, because this news went viral in the so-called Muslim world. Rashad was well known and well praised by kings and universities. I have letters. I put these copies of letters in the back of my book, 19, God's Signature in Nature and Scripture. If you look at it, I have it also maybe on the internet as a PDF.
So what you're saying that back when the Turkish government was giving you so much grief for your earlier work, you were getting accolades from the other parts of the Sunnah world?
Yes, government left me. Now this time, the very group that considered me hero, my own constituency, I became big trouble. Initially, my rejection of Hadiths, but still I had contact with people. But when this came, my books were banned by gangs. They would go to the publishing house, bookstores. They were threatening them not to sell any of my books. Basically, I couldn't write answers to the so-called criticism and insults and lies against me. They basically they publicly lynched me. I had nothing except myself. They had all the foundations. They had, that time they didn't have private TVs, one TV station, but they had newspapers, parties, and all kinds of things. And then when this happened, when I said it, I thought I became basically on the headlines, Edip is an apostate, should be basically killed. They didn't say should be killed, but apostate is really code word for to be killed. Mm-hmm. And then I was threatened on the street walking, and I found that I have no way to express my views. I published my responses to the articles, including my father's second article, in a book called Sakıncalı Yazılar. Let me show you that book too.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how most people don't realize this, but the greatest victim of Muslim terrorism is Muslims.
Well, that's true of virtually any extremist group. Most of the victims of, for example, white supremacists are whites, and so forth and so on. Most of the victims of various ethnic-based street gangs, like black or Latino street gangs, are people of their own ethnicity and locality as well. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then when I printed this book, I found out they stole it from publishing house, from printing house, not publishing house. From my pocket money, I basically published the book. I just established a publishing house myself that time. And then they stole it because it was in a region of Istanbul, called it Çağlaoğlu, near Blue Mosque, that area. They somehow got information and they stole it. And then this time I found a kind of another printing house which is more secular. I published that, I printed that, but I was not able to distribute. And then when my life was threatened and when I was attacked by my previous followers, when there was a signing signature book in book fairs, I had the longest line of readers, but this time they turned all against me. And I understand. If they don't read, they hear me, and this guy is betrayer, and I see their emotion. I can not much accuse them too. And then I had to escape, and my life was at risk. Thank God before I had visa to United States. It was also another adventure until I got visa. United States would not give me a visa. I had to meet the cultural attaché, tell him I'm not a dangerous guy. In fact, I am at risk here. But they gave me a visa previously to come to a conference to Tucson. I came to a conference temporarily. I met Rashad before. Therefore, I had still a few months visa left from my previous visa. And then I escaped. I came. Thank God Rashad was very welcoming. He helped me financially, personally, to establish here. And then I got married. I restarted everything, not everything, of course, but university, for example, after age 31, 32, I started freshman. I couldn't get any credits from the. In fact, I took GED in high school, and then that's it. Too much.
I'm just curious. This number 19 thing. I noticed that your Skype picture is a ladybird with the number 19 on it. When I phoned you earlier, I noticed that your phone number ended with 1919. I'm getting the strong impression that you subscribe to the idea that this 19 miracle is actually miraculous. Is it true that for the 19 miracle to work, there are a few verses that shouldn't be in the Quran? Is that correct?
And I know it brings a very strong reaction by traditional Muslims, which brought same way. When I first heard this, I didn't even have the patience to look his arguments. I wrote to him, I said, Rashad, you passed the line, you are doing the blasphemy, and then I reject him, I sent him the letter. But afterwards, when I look at his arguments, he was using mathematical structure of the Quran, which I had no doubt, because I studied it. I didn't just get excited like many who first got excited. Many religious scholars, Al-Azhar and Turkish top religious leaders, they were so excited this miracle of the Quran, like Tayyar al-Altıkulaç published this as a book. They, without studying, without counting, without verifying, without looking at statistical importance of this, they just got excited and said, this is a miracle. And then when I see this miracle rejects some of their dogmas, and they just turn the opposite. No, this is false. This is not a miracle.
Well, let's back up. What is the number 19 miracle? What do they say? What is it?
First of all, the reaction. I said, if you see numerologies, put numbers together arbitrarily, and then makes meaning out of that, esoteric, personal, and or let me say, people talks about stars and galaxies and stuff and try to predict your future or talk about your character. These are called astrologists. And if there are too many astrologists talking about stars and galaxies in this way, And then you hear another person who is talking about stars, galaxies, but really not talking about their impact on your life, personal life, but they are scientists, they are astronomers. If you are not careful enough, you may just put them in the same category. Oh, this guy is also talking about stars and galaxies, they are the same thing. Usually it is done this way. People with prejudice, which there are many numerologists, like the Bible code, is nonsense. There's no statistical significance. Or the previous people, charlatans, they use numbers for certain spell, bewitchment. Well, numbers are abused, words are abused, everything is abused by humans. But because it was so prevalent, and Muslim world also became enemy to numbers, mathematics, because they betrayed their reason, God-given reason, and mathematics is the most rational stuff. Initial Muslims, they love mathematics. They just got number system from India. They improved it. They created algebra, is invention by Muslims. They devoured philosophy, Greek philosophy, because Islam, Quran, asks people to think, to learn, and this whole universe is God's book. Therefore, the word ayah means sign, is used for verses of the Quran and also for the laws of the universe, design in the universe, the same word. Now, since they have allergy towards numbers, mathematics, they say, Hasha. Hasha means God is above numbers. How can it be numbers in the Quran? But according to them, God is a great literary man. Quran is a literary miracle, which is nonsense because there is no, standard for that, any universal criteria. But therefore, the allergy against mathematics number, which became culture, and also numerology within, and also their knowing that this guy rejected their Sunni teachings and Hadiths, so many contradictions, they have prejudice. With their prejudice, they will not be able to understand. I don't know what is your prejudice. I want to hear your prejudice.
Oh, I've got lots of prejudice. How long do you have?
Before you go on to how prejudiced we are, when you were saying about algebra, I think you said it was an Arabic invention. Was it not just named? The popular name came from Arabia, because I do remember that something about Egyptians were using quadratic equations to work out ownership of land after the Nile had flooded, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
No, everything is a continuum. I'm not claiming they just out of thin air they created this. It's the accumulation.
Okay.
Our knowledge is accumulated, and many civilizations, many nations, individuals contributed to this. But Arabs contributed. Algebra al-Muqawala, the name of the book written by Al-Khwarizmi. Algebra al-Muqawala. This is the book, and there he contributed greatly many kind of algebraic equations, that innovation. Yeah. Of course, he used many from previous mathematicians.
Egyptian, Greek.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not saying out of, but Islam, one thing in parentheses I say, many Muslims don't know about that. The theory of evolution was long, centuries before Darwin, was promoted by Muslim scientists like Abu Rushd, Ibn Khaldun, and many others, Ikhwan al-Safa. And they, in fact, in detail, they started from minerals to plants, and from plants to higher plants like date tree.
This was part of their Hellenic. Legacy.
Yeah, and then Darwin's contemporaries, in fact, accused Darwin of following barbarians, Mohammedans, Muslims. In fact, Darwin's contemporary, the head of president of American Chemical Society, and the president of New York University, says this is what Mohammedans were doing. We cannot ignore their contribution to this. He was accusing some scientists as if this was discovered. The theory of
although in fairness, I will say that the kind of evolution believed in by these medieval Arab and Persian scholars was more similar to, apparently it was more like Lamarckianism than Darwin's.
And besides that, didn't Darwin?
But it was an early understanding of evolution. Based on.
Besides that, didn't Darwin revert to Islam on his deathbed? I've heard that.
Okay, yeah, it is a great book. In fact, I wrote a short introduction for this one, but I love this book. I hope that you can study this. Okay. Now,
I thought that the Quran's view on evolution was, well, the closest I've read to anything like evolution in the Quran was that Jews were turned into pigs and apes. And that was the closest thing I saw to evolution.
This is of course, this is a metaphor used in the Quran. Pigs and monkeys are in the Arab culture are used for people who are pigs, kind of imitator, and those who are lowly. It is a matter of metaphorically saying they became lowly, accepting oppression, or they become imitator of rabbis, following blindly. This is in that context. This has nothing to do with the evolution. The evolution versus, I have written an article, a few articles about this. For example, in chapter Nuh, the chapter Noah, chapter 65, I believe, there are some verses there, and there are other verses, many verses. For example, like this verse, which is mistranslated by many translators. Like, do you have patience for this one?
Oh, you go ahead and read it, yeah.
The beginning of chapter 2, God's about the creation story, about God will create a Khalifa. Have you heard the word Khalifa?
Yes, many times, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it means
they call it Khalifa.
vice-regent.
Leader.
Deputy.
That in fact means the successor. Khalifa means come after. Therefore, after Muhammad, the elected one, the first president was Muhammad, was elected default by the facts as a real thing, as a founder. But afterwards, it was election based on chapter 42, verse 38. Muslims should elect their leaders, not kingship, like today's sultans, kings, they do. They have nothing to do with Islam. First, they betray the Quranic verses, clear verses. How can they be any Muslim? There says, God says, I will create a follower, a successor. And the angel says, will you create a successor that will shed blood? And God says, I know what you don't know. From this pulled attention of many interpreters of the Quran, how angels knew this, and angels do not know the future. Well, it is obvious. It says successor, means there is before Adam, there is another not Homo sapien, but maybe Homo erectus, whatever, close to humanid. And that is very violent, and God wants to create a successor after that, another evolution, a version of something, which called Adam. And this is that. But then they translate Khalifa as God's successor. When people, Sunnis ask them Khalifa, they think it is successor, representative of God. Horrible. Can you represent God?
And which surah and verse is that?
This is chapter 2, verses...
it's in there. It's a very famous one. Adam is the Khalifa of Earth.
I think it is. Verse 30. Yeah, chapter 2, verse 30.
Okay, thank you very much. But sorry, Klingschor, go ahead and ask your question. But I would like to get back to what I would like later to get back to what how the 19 code or what have you works.
The only problem I would have with, I mean, it's all very well, and I from what I can tell, it's
yourself a little bit.
Sorry, I'm Klingschor. I'm one of the co-founders of Gin Tonic Show. I was late because my alarm did not go off. I apologize. But I from what I can tell, and it seems like you've got quite a you seem quite progressive. Maybe I'm wrong, but you seem like you're quite a liberal Muslim. This is fantastic. But the thing I have with just like this kind of view on Adam and the Khalifa and so forth, it just seems kind of post hoc, kind of arbitrary, it's all very well, but what evidence do we have that this is the case? Because when I look at the Quran, what I simply see is, without presuppositions, is just like a continuation of the Judeo-Christian tradition, you know, a continuation of the Judeo-Christian ideas of where humankind came from, like Adam and Eve. Not like literally the first man and woman made out of clay. You know what I mean? So how is it, why should we give your views more credence than the traditional views, basically?
That's a beautiful question, absolutely a valid question. But first of all, our views are categorically different than all of them combined, because we don't follow, this is epistemological difference, which is important to distinguish. It is much important than the difference between Shiite and Sunni difference. It is because we say the Quran is the only book that we consider as source of Islam. Hadiths have been fabricated historically 200, 300, 500 years after Prophet Muhammad, and the Quran rejects any other source as source of religion. And therefore, when we follow the Quran alone and then follow reason, because the Quran promotes reason, not betraying the reason as those hadiths imposes on them. Therefore, under the light of reason, eliminate, trash all these liturgy, the Quran becomes very clear. The very verses about God created Adam from clay, if you look at it, you can understand it two ways. One is created from clay as material, or as a source, as a kind of place of creation. In fact, there are theories right now, in fact it was once a cover story of Scientific American, that clay, through its geodesic structure, geometric structure that creates flexibility, and that can, most likely it was the home, the first cell, the first life. Therefore we could originally come from the clay. There is water there, there is kind of certain incubator nest, that could be referring to that. Also,
but I mean, may I raise an objection? The thing is, the problem with that is that the Quran doesn't say life was created from clay. It says that Adam, the first human. And another problem, and this is I think more of a substantial problem, is that the story of Adam begins in Mesopotamia, with the Mesopotamian creation myths of the Adamu, and they're literally creating people out of clay. These Near Eastern creation stories aren't talking about life. They're talking about God making a little clay doll man and breathing life into it. That's the creation story, and the Quran simply seems to repeat this exact story. So, how can we give your, when the Quran is in the Near East and mentioning all these Near Eastern figures?
Beautiful. The commonality, certain things. It doesn't mean one got from one. You can say, well, Islam came after this, Islam copied from that. That's one theory. I understand, one option. The other option, both of them comes from somewhere else, maybe true, but one distorted more, the other did not distort. Therefore, in order to relate in that these are serially connected to each other is one way, or parallel, but there is main source over there, but maybe one created story. For example, about the story of big Noah's flood. Quran mentions that, but according to Quran, it's a small local in the Dead Sea area. And
I don't agree with that. From what I remember reading in the Quran, there were waves that were as high as mountains. Now, for waves to be as high as mountains, obvious tsunami waves aren't as high as mountains. We're talking global flood.
No, it is not global flood. Let me tell you what.
Just let me finish a second. Plus, the Quran also says that we are all descended from Noah.
No.
So how could all people be descended from Noah?
No, it doesn't say that.
Let me see if I can find the reference. You make your point, and I'll see if I can find that reference. Oh, and also, there is another verse which says 23:12, which doesn't say we made in clay. It says we made from an essence of clay, which suggests a small extract of physical material rather than made within clay, if you know what I mean. Right, you carry on with what
Okay.
point you're going to make, and I'll have a look.
Again, we materially, the Quran says we made you from turab, from soil, and from water. Well, you can say there is contradiction. It must be either this one or this one. But the verse doesn't say. I teach logic, my dear friends, and I know the logical consistency of the Quran. If the Quran say I made you only from clay, then made you from water would contradict that one. But when we look at it as a picture, all of those, we see there is clay, there is earth, there is earthly materials, and there is water. These are the elements that make us. We come really materially from earth. Therefore, and water is the essence of life, the Quran says. Therefore, if you bog down too much into details, try to nitpick that way, good for you, go ahead. But give some benefit of doubt, which you will not give because you have so much Sunni distortions in your mind and create so much prejudice and negative things about the Quran. And I know that through you, I will be discussing against two people. And each of them are difficult, has their own dogmas. One is Sunnis. In each of you, I have to clarify and argue and expose the fallacies of Sunnism which you got, because you are raised with those lies, with those distortions. And first, I have to do that, and second, come to your atheistic or agnostic side, and that's a daunting task. I did this with some, and usually face-to-face, it is much better. This is kind of good thing that we can see each other. Mm-hmm. I don't know what we are talking. I discussed this with Michael Shermer. Have you watched that video, my discussion with Michael Shermer?
We know him, but I'm not familiar with the conversation.
Yeah, check it now, Running Like Zebras. You will see this gentleman, which I like him. In fact, in some of my philosophy classes, I use some of his exposition of charlatans, and still I find his work pretty useful, beautiful, because critical thinkers, we need critical thinkers and atheists in the world to not to give these free pass to these religious people who make up so many lies and exploit people. And I do believe that religion is the drug of masses, opium of masses, as Marx said. Now, watch that one. This gentleman, he's a very smart guy, and debate with me how we end up becoming very fanatical, dogmatic. And because he became arrogant, he lost big time. This very nice guy, still I love him, and I felt bad, honestly felt bad for him, why he put himself in that situation. Because when he became arrogant, he blinded himself, he said the things he should not have said, and he started kind of contradicting himself. At the end, he looked at the camera, he said, I look like an idiot here. I don't want this section to be aired. And I wouldn't be, but the producers, unfortunately, they decided to put it include that one. And I couldn't really edit it, take it. I said, well, this is, the guy said it. When I make mistakes, I do make mistakes, and sometimes say certain things even I don't mean, or my knowledge is limited. I correct myself, and that's okay. I'm not hiding my error. Anyway, this one. And also after this one, I want you to watch my debate with president of Atheist Organization in New Jersey, Dr. Silverman. He did much better conversation debate about existence of God than Michael, because Michael Sherman got very arrogant, and it was not easy for him to continue that way. But that debate, you will hear very good, useful argument. You will hear both sides.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let me interject something. This happens a lot of the time. Like you said, you have progressive or liberal religious people from any religion, and you're right that the non-religious, atheist, agnostic, skeptical position often takes the form of playing devil's advocate on the behalf of the literalists. So from your perspective, as you said, it's almost as though the people who don't believe in the religion at all and the people who believe it in its most literal and dogmatic form are in some bizarre de facto alliance just for the purposes of argument. I mean, that's a timeless model. We come into that. We make the same observation all the time, and it's a bit comical. But I will say that none of us are free of bias. When I first read the Quran, it was way back in the day before any of the current tension and the climate of suspicion and the wars and all of this business. So I was just reading it as like an ancient book, just like I was reading Homer or Plato or something like that. So I wasn't reading it in a passionate mindset. But nobody's completely free of bias when they first read something like that, of course. Now, when we come to something like the verses of clay, I'm tempted to believe that when they say made of clay, that the author of the Quran is thinking is this a literal miracle, clay being shaped with supernatural forces in human beings. Many of the most literal religious people, Christians and Muslims, they would agree that that's what it meant, and then we disagree on whether or not it actually happened. But of course, now there's the third party with progressive Christians, Muslims, and other religions that they think, well, these are metaphors. But the reason I think the reason when I find one religious book and it says this miraculous thing happened and we tend to interpret it literally is because I can compare it to all of the other texts from antiquity that make very similar claims, and they seem also to be doing it literally. Like for example, if you read Plato, he thought that people were made of little tiny triangles, and it's just people back in the day were sort of throwing things against the wall, and if it sounded reasonable or if it wasn't disprovable, they would believe it. But the thing is, I've noticed that many moderate to liberal religious people, they tell themselves, well, my religion and its text, it's largely metaphorical, where it seems to be a bit on the strange side. But then, these other religions, they're perfectly explicable as anthropological phenomena. You understand? It's perfect. These people who worship a god with the head of a bird, it's because hawking was popular in the culture. These people, who live by the river, they have a god with the head of a fish. Obviously, that belief grew up because fishing is such an important part, and so forth and so on. So everybody develops gods, and so someone, unless someone is really virulently dogmatic and thinks all other religions are the product of the devil, usually liberal religious people say, okay, well, our religion is divinely inspired. These other religions, man-made by people sort of, fumbling around in the dark. Because these people have a wolf god, these people have a spider god, but nobody has a penguin god. Nobody in the Americas, Eurasia, Africa, Australia, nobody has a penguin. Everyone has gods that are, act like them, think like them, behave like them, or have properties of things around them. But I'm of the opinion that to think that every other religion is just man-made in ignorance, and that my religion, if I'm religious, is the one true, the one that is truly inspired. It's akin to me to thinking that everyone else in the world came from a womb, but I was brought by the stork, even though I know how human reproduction works. You know what I mean? It's not like a virgin birth. Like everyone else came through a birth canal or a C-section, but I was brought by the stork. It's such a even the most liberal people still practice just as radical a form of exceptionalism for their own beliefs as conservatives.
Well, let me tell you something about that. I am as skeptic as you are, perhaps more skeptic. Those people who know me, they know the level of my skepticism. Despite my skepticism and my daring to reject my parents' religion and taking all the risk, and then throughout there rejecting some of my previous work publicly, I have shown both through my life and my work that I am a searcher for truth. I am a philosopher before being subscribing to any religion. I am a reasoning person. Therefore, I have questions that I don't have answers. However, I look at the things a little bit. Do you hear me, or do we have connection?
No, we hear you. We hear you.
Yeah. I think that I would appreciate if you send me an email, gentlemen. I send you a PDF version of 19, God's Signature in Nature and Scripture. That book, you look at it. And maybe also Manifesto for Islamic Reform. It is available at 19.org. that one will help you to look at the Quran from different perspective then, because whether you accept it or not, your brain is polluted by the Sunni and Shiite distortions. Even through the news and everything, you do not see the Quran as should be seen.
Actually,
actually,
the Quran I didn't even know what a Hadith was when I read the Quran. And I read
the Quran translation, let me tell you, the Quran translations have a lot of distortions. In the beginning of Reformist Quran translation, I have 15 just samples of some very important verses that each of them are very important, related to women or relation with other nations, life and death issues. And I expose that how they are mistranslated in order to satisfy the hearsay stories or sectarian dogmas. And I argue, in fact, I say you don't need even to know Arabic to see the problem with this, because I show you, look at these verses, see the same word is translated this way and this way, and you see the same word physically, you can look at it, you don't need even to the meaning of it, and you will see it is translated differently. Therefore, the translation you read is not necessarily reflecting the message of the Quran. It is distorted because of accumulated pollution, dirt. I want to just go back very shortly about verses about evolution. I open up just my thing. I have thing. Do you hear me? Where did this gentleman go? Gin and tonic.
He sometimes goes and performs personal action.
No problem. He's a human being. That means he's not angel. Okay. 24 verse 20. Chapter 24. 4 verse 45 says, God created every moving creature from water, so some of them move on their bellies, and some walk on 2 legs, and some walk on 4. God creates whatever he wills. God is capable of all things. And 29:19 says, did they not observe how God initiates the creation, then he returns it, repeats it. All that for God is easy to do. And 29:20, the following verse says, say, roam the earth and observe how the creation was initiated. Then God will establish the final design. God is capable of all things. This is really referring to what Darwin did. Darwin followed exactly this verse without even knowing it. And then the verses that I was talking about in chapter Noah, which I gave the wrong number for chapter number is 71. And with this one I will end, talk about evolution because it's too long. 71:13 to 71, chapter 71, verse 21, I am reading it. Why do you not seek God humbly, while he created you in stages? Did you not see how God created 7 heavens in harmony? He made the moon to illuminate in them, and he made the sun to be a lit flame. God made you grow from the earth as plants. Then he returns you to it, and he brings you out totally. God made the land for you as a plain so that you may seek in it ways and paths. Noah said, my Lord, they have disobeyed me and have followed one whose money and children only increasing in loss. Anyway, I want to stop here. There are many other verses on this issue, but this one, we made you as plants in the context of creation, and we created you in stages. And the other verse, when I said, if you want to see how God started the creation, go observe the earth. Go travel and observe the earth. Means really saying, not go to the sky, read the books, but go study the earth. Exactly archaeology that Darwin was the one first started observing this carefully. Okay, and let's pass another topic. Because
you're not saying, though, that because the Quran says, go and observe the earth, that is in some way related to evolution because Darwin observed the earth in order to come up with the idea. Is that what you're saying? Or
I'm not saying Darwin knowingly, consciously followed this verse.
No, not consciously, but what I'm saying...
But I think the same thing, exactly the same thing. The methodology that Darwin followed, instead of thinking like Descartes do in his room, thinking about observing things, but go around the earth and study it, the Quran says, how God started the creation. Therefore, the answer will come by studying, observing the earth. Exactly.
So really, when the Quran tells people to think or to observe, and this is something that I want to say before when you mentioned something similar, it's not really saying, look at the earth and see what it brings, or what you make of it or whatever. It's look at the earth. All of this testifies to God's existence. The Quran is offering
in the context of God's existence. No, it's not talking about God's existence. It's talking of starting the creation.
Can you please? What's the verse again? Sorry, what was?
It was chapter 71. Oh no, this is 29, 19, and 20. Chapter 29, which is Spider, Al-Ankabut. 19 and 20, verse 19, 20 of chapter 29.
But again, it's how Allah begins His creation. So it's telling people, consider the world. It was God who made all this. You know what I mean? It's all a really bad teleological argument. So I wouldn't suggest that the Quran inspires free thinking or thought or skepticism. The Quran is telling people, look around. God is the answer to everything. This is not. Again,
there are verses about that. There are verses says in this creation of heavens, in your own creation, there are signs for God. But this one is not in that context about God's existence. It is not about teleological argument. It is about, if you are wondering about how God started the creation, the beginning of the creation, go observe the earth. That's interesting if you think about it. But if you want to be nitpicking and take it always the wrong way, absolutely, you have all the way. Good luck for you. Take it.
No. It isn't about being nitpicky. It's simply if you look at this text without the presupposition that it,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
If you look at the Quran without your presuppositions that it is miraculous or that we want to give it a modern spin, if we just look at the text without Sunni, without Shia, without modernist presupposition, we just look at the text, all I'm looking at here is consider how God made the earth, travel throughout the world and observe how God created, made creation, how He made creation. It's just trying to give praise to God.
I have many reasons to see it as an insightful methodology how to observe the creation, because I have many other reasons. When there are many verses of the Quran about creation and I see them, none of them contradicts the modern sciences, then pulls my more attention. For example, about أفلا يرون أن السماوات والأرض كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما. Don't they see, the disbelievers, God says, don't they see that the earth and the heavens and the skies were one point, رتقا, together, ففتقناهما, we separated them. Now that's about Big Bang. You don't say Big Bang, but this is really description. You can say some people knew it. Fantastic.
In cosmology terms, that's incorrect, though. In cosmology terms,
that's correct.
No, in cosmology terms, it's incorrect. There wasn't one thing. The heavens and the earth weren't one, and then they were separated.
What was it?
The earth is still part of the heavens. The earth isn't a separate thing from the universe. The earth wasn't separated from the heavens.
No.
Everything.
The earth and listen.
And
the
also,
earth and heaven, they were one together. Therefore, it was one point. Means there was no earth and heavens. They were all ratqan. One point. Exactly. The earth comes from Big Bang as a material thing.
And Earth didn't exist for 9 billion years after the expansion of the universe.
But the Earth, the material that makes the Earth. No. I know what is cosmology. The material atoms that makes the Earth, sir, it comes from the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, what verse is this? Sorry.
Let Edip finish his point.
Just what verse is this? Sorry.
And this is chapter 21. I can show it. I can give you the verse number. And then another verse. It's not only when you put together all these threads, many descriptions, not a single one, and then they follow each other. Let me see. Chapter. Okay, here. 82. 21, chapter 21, verse 30. And then chapter 51, 47. 21, 30. And thus, whosoever honors God's restriction, oh, no, 21:30. I am looking at different chapter. Okay. Did those who reject not see that the heavens and the earth were one mass, and we tore them apart? That we made from the water everything that lives, will they not acknowledge? Now, another one, yes.
You said that's a Big Bang. I mean, it's just, it just, to me, it just has, I'll just look at this text. It simply, it's not talking about the Big Bang. There's no, you're just arbitrarily taking this and destroying it to find the Big Bang.
Tell me what is it?
Well, it's simply repeating the standard Judeo-Christian beliefs about how the world came into being.
What was it?
When
the Bible says the same thing?
It's in Genesis.
God fashioned the sky. Yeah, in Genesis. Sorry,
Yeah.
you explain.
Can I just read out the part from Genesis? What happened was God was over the deep. God was over the deep. And he said, let there be a firmament between the two waters, the upper and the lower water. The Quran talks about a firmament between two waters, a barrier. God separated the water under the vault from the water above it, and God called the upper vault the sky. So what he's done is there was one water, put a firmament between the waters, and then he's lifted the upper one to make it the sky. He then created the sun and the moon, and he created lights in the sky and so on. And then he says, then let the water teem with living creatures. So what you've got is the Quran saying that a firmament was put between two waters. That's from Genesis. It says the heavens have been raised up high.
You are very
Genesis.
confusing. You are getting a story from the...
Let me just finish this.
Go ahead.
So you've got the two waters being separated by a barrier of which is in Genesis. You've then got the heavens being raised up, which is in the Quran and in Genesis. You've got then followed by water teeming with living creatures. All the living creatures then appeared in the water. It's exactly the same as it is in Genesis. It's just scattered around in different places.
So
basically, rather than
Klingschor, let him come back. Let him come back.
Sorry.
Yeah. The problem with you guys, you want to impose on the Quran the stories in Hadith and Sunnah. When you have verses of the Quran, doesn't include any of those contradictory verses in the Bible that contradicts their sciences. You want, because the Quran mentions one part, and scientifically it's correct, you want to reject it by finding the similar things, but all other stories that the Quran excludes that contradict sciences, you want to include that one. That's a beautiful way to reject anything. I can talk about scientists' work. I say, well, you say this about the world, about atoms. Here is what previous scientists said this about atoms, funny things and strange things, stupid things, or this, false proven. I say you are copying from them. You are saying the same thing. The same thing you can do it to reject any truth by finding a part of truth in something that mixed with falsehood, and then you bring that falsehood, import to this one, accuse this one which doesn't have it. I challenge you, bring me from the Quran. If Quran got copies from these books but excluded all the contradictory things with science, and only the ones that somehow we can see it this way, or you want to see not that way because you want to bring Bible and other stories into it, take the Quran alone. Don't go to the Bible or Hadith, and then argue with me. I'm ready. Yes.
But listen. This is the problem. Okay, what you're arguing is that the Quran came out of a vacuum, and that it's no connection to previous traditions. Whereas reality is that the Quran is the product of late antiquity. Okay, throw out the Hadiths. I don't care about the Hadiths, but what I care about is the fact that the Quran is the product of late antiquity. It reflects numerous stories and traditions of Judeo-Christian sectarian milieus of late antiquity, extending all the way back in those traditions, in all these areas, Adam and Noah and Ibrahim and the creation of the earth and the creation of mankind, and all these different stories, all these different, the story of Qarnayn, the Alexander the Great, and the story of El-Kifl, the people in the cave. All of these stories of late antiquity going back hundreds of years are reflected in the Quran. And then, no, disconnected. This actually simply reflect the antecedent traditions from which the Quran is derived. Don't mean that. They mean really advanced scientific things we only just discovered. Which view is more likely? I'm sorry, but if you just look at the text in its original context, it simply looks as though the Quran is repeating these Christian, these Jewish, these biblical stories.
Accordingly, I give you an example, but you don't take you need to study a little bit. The Quran, the story of Noah, never says it is worldwide. In fact, says put logs from the tree.
It doesn't matter.
Well,
listen.
Let him finish his point, please.
When put logs, the three logs next to each other, and take the animals, his animals, his household animals, and that it is about his own people, the people that know in that area. It is local, it is punishment for those people who aggress, and he delivered the message, his own people. But this same story, truth most likely, it was the older books too, but story makers, which is in Islam we see how they made up many stories which is not in the Quran. The same stories maker in Judaism, rabbis and stuff, they made up stories, exaggerated stories. Now, you look at it, it says, well, Quran is telling the same story that exaggerated these false stories. One way of looking at it. But the other one, the origin is maybe correct, that there was a local flood and the Quran mentioned and the old book mentioned, but the old book interfered by stories of rabbis. And then, therefore, the source could be correct. The real source could be correct. But later, some exaggerated, added falsehood. That way, look at it too. We can have one event here, my dear friend. These events here, and a century later, some people made up stories about this event, distorted, but some people may accurately depict that event. And then another person who doesn't know about events suspicious says, well, you are telling the same story. You see this stupid story you got from them. No, sir. Okay.
Surely would Allah not know this? Surely Allah would know this. That Allah would know that there are these parallel stories that have been they've evolved over time to become a global flood, and that when the Quran arrives in the 7th century, that the exact words being used in the Quran, if it turned out there was a global flood, then everyone could say, look, the Quran was right, there was a global flood.
Hear me. No. The depiction...
Hang on a second. It could easily have said, and we flooded his town, we created a local flood, and then what you would have, it was completely unambiguous, and there would be no question whatsoever that it was not a variation of an earlier story.
You want to read these verses about the flood. If you read it, I challenge you read it from Reformist translation and compare with others. I am ready to discuss with a Sunni scholar in front of you how they added some in parentheses or some without parentheses, make it like Christian flood.
Okay. In that case then, rather than looking with eyes that say, I'm in the 21st century and I don't think there's any evidence of a global flood, and then looking at the Quran and saying it doesn't say there's a global flood, can you tell me in the Quran where it explicitly says that the flood in question was a local flood? Is there somewhere in there that says it was a local flood only?
Here, let me tell you something. The Quran says when messengers go to a people, his own people, those people, if they reject the messenger, that very people who receive the message could get punishment if they aggress, they go violent against messenger. Only that people. The Quran gives repeated example. Ad, Samud, these are all local punishments for the very people. God says we will not punish any community that did not receive a messenger. Therefore, what you are looking at fragmental without knowing the other things in the Quran. When you put together all together, you understand the language and the ideology in the Quran, you will see it is God will not, there are many verses, will not punish a population that did not receive messenger. This is Noah talking with his people. And then these people reject his message, which he invites people to be nice to each other, not oppress to each other, to be peaceful. This is the common message of messengers. And then when they object him, it says there will be a flood. And they mock him. These are the people around him. And then God says, put together logs and make a boat for yourself and get your family and the animals get out. That's it. There's nothing indicating worldwide things, but you want to insert it, that's fine. Go ahead, insert it.
See, this is the problem, though. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter, for me, it doesn't matter if global or not, right? It's like, say, like, you know, the biblical tradition, you know, oh yes, God speaks to Noah, becomes sinful, I'm going to flood the world, get a boat, grab some people, grab some animals, right? And then, you know, and in the biblical one, it's a global flood. But in the Quran, it's a local flood. So they're completely different stories. No, it's the same story. They've changed some elements. Even if I concede that it's a local flood, even if I concede it was only a couple of animals. Wait. It's the same story. It's the same characters. It doesn't matter. It's part of the same tradition. It's repeating the same elements, the same story remade for a different audience.
Okay, allow me to say that mundane origin or divine origin, it could conceivably be two variations on the same general theme.
Yeah. Thank you. 151.
Not conceivably. It's the same. It's new. It's Noah.
Yeah, I know.
Same story.
I know, but I mean, it's not like there aren't different versions of the same story involving the same characters.
But that's the point. It's just different variations of the exact same tradition. It's still Judeo-Christian tradition. The Quran is still repeating Jewish and Christian stories.
You don't get it. The Christian version contradicts with the evidences, archaeological fossil evidences that we have. But the Quranic version doesn't contradict. And there is no problem. There are local floods happens all the time. Therefore, you want to confuse it. There is big difference between the two stories. They are not the same. Simple.
Okay, so but you acknowledge that it's from Judeo-Christian tradition, but you're saying that the Quran managed to somehow miraculously get the story right, and all the previous Judeo-Christian traditions got it wrong.
The Quran gets the story right. At the creation of the universe, somehow Muhammad, he knew what is wrong, what is right. Somehow he got always hit at 12 right one. That's my
argument. Okay. Now we've got it clear. So you agree that it's from...
Yeah, let's say he copied from the Quran, from the Bible. Somehow he eliminated the ones that didn't make sense or scientifically wrong, and each time he hit the right one. And you want to think, well, at least you can say, at least respect him, he's a genius. At least say he's incredible, he knows these sciences.
Having read the Quran, I don't think I could ever say Muhammad was a genius.
All right, let's play nice. Let's play nice.
No, I read it and I just thought there's so many things wrong with it. But I am curious about this boat, though. If the flood was local and the waves were as high as mountains, what kind of a boat could Noah have built that could withstand impact from waves as high as mountains?
What is the exact words? Do you have the verse numbers for me, Flood? I'm right now. Do you want me to look at it, find it?
No, that's fine. And you know, we're going to move on from this pretty soon because I think that both sides have mostly made their points.
But I'm curious, which verse says mountains? Because I would like to...
yeah, the word
because if waves are high as mountains, then there is no argument about it. It's a global flood. Or else, what? He had like a massive pillar of water, and the ark was on the very top of it, and it was higher than a mountain. You know what I mean? So if the Quran indeed states that waves are higher than mountains, then unless it was like lol jokes, it's just a mini mountain that's, you know, a few inches tall. Clearly, it's a global flood. Clearly, it's exactly the same.
It's Surah 11, number 42.
11.
11:42. Yeah. So the boat sailed with them amid waves as tall as
I am
mountains.
glad that you know about what you're talking. So beautiful. 1142.
I'm glad that you think I'm beautiful. That's very kind.
Lovely.
I'm
You're
glad I came
fantastic.
today now.
All right.
Okay, hold on.
So the exact word is Kaljibali, if I can pronounce it.
Al-Jibali, yes. Yes.
Yeah, Jibali, of course, is mountains, mountains. Yeah, this is synonymous with other words. If you look at
Okay,
a concordance of the Quran, it's mountain.
Yep.
Yeah, this is what his people. Only few people believed him. And this is about his people. And then let's see, what is this? واسمع الفلك دعينا. Okay.
And it's sailed with him.
Kling, it's bad enough to ask someone to fetch information live on debate, but it's not break his concentration with.
One another verse I wanted to pull your attention. We constructed the universe with might, and we are expanding it. It is another hit.
It doesn't actually say we are expanding it, though, does it?
Yeah, it uses the past perfect.
No, not only that. It's not even a verb. It's a noun. What was the chapter and verse for that
no,
one?
it is a verb. It is a kind of noun verb. وَإِنَّا لَمُوسِعُونَ. It's not وَإِنَّا وَاسِعُونَ.
Yeah, lamusiuna. I remember.
We are making it great. We are making it expand. Musiun, in fact, it says perpetually.
Can you tell me which the chapter and verse was? Do you recall chapter and verse?
The verse number is 5147.
5147, yeah. Idee, what was your mother's name?
Wait, what? Why are you asking?
No, Idee, what was your mother's name? If you don't mind.
It's better be going somewhere, because that's kind of rude.
I'm sorry.
Okay, you can make a pretend name if you like.
Who?
Okay, I'll rephrase the question.
Yeah, if he didn't know any better, he would think. Okay.
Your mother, is she your giver of birth?
Mother who gave birth?
Is your mother? Would you describe your mother as your giver of birth?
Yeah.
But she's not still giving birth to you, is she?
Yes, in English it is.
So,
but in Arabic, musi'un, you need to find another English word that reflects the perpetual act, because musi'un is continuously doing that effect.
Well,
it's
but
not
wait,
one time.
Isn't that built from the past participle, though?
Can I just say...
Which would make it perfective, I would think.
There is in 51:47, it says, Wal sama, and the heaven, Banayanaha, which we constructed it. We constructed it is a perfect verb. It's historical. So where it says that the heaven has been constructed, it's actually a finished event. It's been constructed. And we are its expanders. It's an active particle. It's saying we are. It's like me saying my mother is my giver of birth. She's not still birthing me, but she still is the person who gave birth to me. Just as Allah still is the one that expanded the universe, and expanded means made it really, really big. You couldn't have it as a perfect.
No, because
Allah cannot be a perfect verb. Allah has to be an imperfect verb. Allah has to be continuing, ongoing. So you can't say Allah was the one that expanded it. It's Allah is the one who expanded it, or Allah is its expander.
Yeah. Wasa means wide. Elsa means to make it wider, to make it more spacious. Mose is from Elsa, Mose, the one who make it wider. Now, in order for you, you need to find in Arabic like musi'un, like whatever, that is not used in continuous, but only one action. If you find it, absolutely, I will accept your argument. But you need to find in Arabic that in this form used, but for one-time event, for a kind of limited event.
Yeah.
And there is also
Sorry,
another verse. You will always have problem. I know you will do, that's fine. There is another verse, let's put together somehow. One of them you want to relate to the Bible, mixed Bible. In this one you want, that's fine. But I want you to find a counter-argument. If you find a similar form is used for one case, then you made your argument. Otherwise, in English you cannot find it because
no,
Arabic
what I'm saying, it's not a case of what I want. Because to be quite honest, I don't want anything.
Yes.
You know, I really don't. I don't want it to say. I'm not bothered what it says. It's not a case of wanting. But would you agree that by reading that, the currentness of it could be Allah still is the expander, and it doesn't necessarily mean the one expanding. It could mean it was once expanded, and Allah still is the expander of it. You see what I mean?
Yes, I do understand.
So if I think the rule of miracles generally is, if a mundane explanation is possible, then you must opt for the mundane explanation. Now, if the Quran is perfect, and the Quran is trying to say that the universe is expanding, I would say my words would be something like, we are the ones that created the universe mighty, and we expand it more and more, or we make it grow all of the time, which is 100% unambiguous. Now,
no, you will find, honestly, 100%, you will try to find nitpicking on that one too. I have no doubt, because as clear as possible, I have bringing to people evidence. People, if they are in the mode of denial, that cannot be, you can say, you cannot see it the other way, but they try their way. Therefore,
that's fine. You say that we can nitpick it. You say that we can nitpick it. Well, I'm inviting you to do that. He has created the universe massive, and all of the time it gets bigger and bigger. Nitpick that for me, please.
Okay.
Okay.
It will satisfy you. One more, and then I will finish this section regarding the creation of the universe.
Yeah, I think this is going on. But wait, what?
Okay.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry.
you nitpick it. But that, just my point is I'm so unambiguous there that I don't think that you can nitpick that, because that is, as far as we know, the reality. And if you're saying that's what the Quran says, well, the Quran says it in a far more ambiguous way than I just said it. So if the Quran is trying to put across that message, then it doesn't do it as well as I just did.
I do agree, and I would like to concede that I appreciate your skeptical look at this, because it claims to be God's word. It is extraordinary claim. And you look to get suspicious if there are ambiguous statements like, let's say, who is this guy who came up with predictions, famous?
Nostradamus?
And Nostradamus.
Hey, it's like a game show, and I just, boom, before they're done reading the question, I got it.
You say there are a lot of ambiguous general statements, and people try to kind of make a meaning, relate to something, events here. And absolutely, as I look at that with the care, with the like skepticism you do, absolutely. And I do think that you will have a way to not really much impressed by these verses, but maybe you'll be a little bit impressed. I don't think that these verses about sciences in the Quran conclusively shows that this is word of God or extraordinary in terms of knowledge. I do concede that. But the mathematical structure of the Quran, to me, it is the one really that eliminated all the doubts about the Quran. It doesn't mean I don't have problem with some of the verses based on my culture or my knowledge or maybe my misunderstanding. But I'm as skeptical as I am. It convinced me 100% this is divine. And when I say divine, I know the implication of it. And the other verses, therefore, when I look at it, I don't look at it in a nitpick that I see it as really they support it. Like
So
yes.
if I'm correct, then your argument isn't look the Big Bang is in the Quran, but rather if we look at the Big Bang and then look in the Quran, we can't say the Quran was wrong. Is that what you're saying? As in, it's not a prediction of the discovery of the Big Bang, but if you look at the Big Bang and look at this text, you can't say, oh, this text is scientifically inaccurate.
Yes.
But the way I see that is the Quran is ambiguous enough to match either reality. That's the thing I found with the Quran. I found that if we discovered one day that we were living on a flat Earth where the sun orbits the Earth, the Quran would have been right. But when we found out that we were in a heliocentric solar system on a spheroid Earth, it's vague enough, with a little bit of twisting of Arabic, in my opinion, to say,
yes,
oh no, it doesn't say.
I do absolutely appreciate this skepticism, and you are right. If I were like you, and I would do it the same way. But I want to give you one example. For example, the Quran says, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا. I don't remember the chapter number, but I said the word verses could be found. Afterwards, we made the earth egg-shaped. Dahaha made it like it. Hold on.
Oh boy! Wow.
Let's not even.
Because I know.
And
I know the story of
the word daha. Please explain to me the word daha.
Let's not get into the Zakir Naik stuff, please.
Daha,
we've covered a lot of. I'm sorry, everyone.
Okay.
That's just covering too much material in a row. Let's back up. Let's back up just a little bit. I agree with Edip that we need to move on to something else aside from the we spread it out. But let me just put in my 2 cents. I don't think whether this verse says we created, or we are continue creating, or we are the creator continuing, or whether it says we expanded and it's finished, or we are expanding, that in of itself isn't a deal breaker for the Quran entire. So I don't think that any Muslim needs to feel. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to argue your case, of course. I'm just saying that I don't think that from the Muslim's perspective, there's an ardent need to stand their ground on this. They could they could be wrong about the Quran saying this, and it doesn't invalidate anything else. It doesn't make it a deal breaker for it to have created in the past tense, right? Yeah. But I will say that just one more time, just to make sure I haven't made an egregious error. What is the word that we were that you and Rationalizer were talking about? It was something.
La musiauna.
El musion.
And so in this case, just for people who aren't too knowledgeable about Arabic, I'm not a fluent speaker myself, but I've studied it. If after mu, which is a prefix which nominalizes, if after that the first sound, the first letter is part of the stem, that's usually an indication that it's the past participle, and that it's indicating a completed. Whereas in a similar noun, like for example the caliph mutawakkil, the wa is actually the first letter of the stem. The mu is again the nominalizing prefix. The ta is the prefix given to a stem that has been conjugated for the present progressive tense. So if you have muta something, that's almost always indicative of non-past, present or progressive. And if it's mu and then the first letter of the stem, it's again almost always indicative of the past participle. Okay, but again, that's not a deal breaker for the Quran entire, certainly.
I disagree with that, but let's pass it.
All right. And if a whole bunch of native Arabic speakers write in to correct me, we'll add an annotation to the video to reflect even the most hair-splitting argument.
I claim it is from Elsa to make it wider, and Musion means continuously widening, expanding it. And the other verse of the Quran, when it says, we will bring the universe, the whole universe, back like folding the pages of the book. That is also close the universe, and it is about the end of the universe that the universe will collapse as it is opened, like pages of the book.
Okay, wait, actually, we have...
No.
We have our first caller, though, but go ahead.
Okay, so with that one, are you saying that the Quran predicts that the universe will expand, decelerate, and then collapse back in on itself?
Yeah, it will collapse with the end of the world.
Oh, I'm glad you said that because that's actually been disproved.
Well, wait, but that answers our next. That answers.
No,
I know, but here it is. I am in this case. It is against maybe today's scientific, maybe observation or speculations. But this is what Quran. I don't want. I will not make the Quran go along with this. No, it's not disproved, sir. I am following the science.
No, that's fine. No, I'm glad that you are actually willing to say that this is what the Quran says, because it becomes a testable thing. Yeah. When we were trying to establish the value of G by measuring masses of stars and how much they're slowing down, the question was, will there be enough gravity to pull everything back together, or will there be too much of a force so that it will spread out forever? And the surprise that nobody was expecting was not only is it going to keep expanding forever, but it's not even decelerating. A thing that we now call dark energy, because it describes an unknown factor, is actually driving the expansion of the universe faster and faster. So it isn't slowing down to recollapse. It's actually expanding, increasing.
Is it conclusively proven like the previous one, or still is open for another observation, discovering more dark matter and dark energy in the universe, and then finally saying, well, we were wrong again?
No, what do you mean conclusive like the other one? What other one?
This theory that open universe, recently there is another speculation, which is still we are speculating. We don't have conclusive observation on this issue. We haven't discovered everything that we are looking for. It still continues. Scientists still questioning. It is not, there is no period put here as you are trying to say it. Therefore, it is open for discussion.
Okay.
Oh, well, apart from those
all right, everyone. But you've already made that point, Rash.
Can I just make one thing? Don't you see the fundamental flaw in your methodology, though? Is that when the Quran says something that you try to construe to agree with science, the Quran is correct, and science agrees with it. But if at any point the science so clearly disagrees with the Quran, oh well, it's science that's wrong. So the Quran is always wrong no matter what. Like that seems to be your approach.
It's the
very
verses
arbitrary.
Let him come back, guys.
Of the Quran clear to me. I don't believe in the Quran as you might think. I know that the Quran is word of God. I have my evidences, which I haven't talked about this. These are maybe supportive something. You can consider it if you look at it one way. The way I see it, I read it carefully. I'm not, I know Arabic well. I can teach Arabs the Arabic. I may not be able to talk well, but I know how in the past even they distorted meaning some of verses clearly in order to be able to make it fit in their past understanding. They distorted, in fact, they discussed about it. They couldn't fathom that the earth would be round. They wanted to make it like, instead of egg, saying egg nest. They even argued that, well, if it's egg says, make it like egg. It doesn't make sense. It must be a metaphor for the nest of the egg. I read about this. But anyway, I want to pass this one.
Okay.
But the major thing is the mathematical structure of the Quran. And since it made me 100% that this is incredible book and the most read and least understood, unfortunately, and the most betrayed holy book. And when I look at some clear verses of the Quran, even contrary to today's some scientific speculations, even observation, but not conclusive, I stick by it. But if contradicts with scientific observation, then I have problem with that verse, because there should not be contradiction. Because the very Quran shows consistency of the Quran and the universe. They are by one source. God will not contradict itself. This is one of the criteria is given in the Quran. That will be a major issue for me. Absolutely. If scientific evidence 100% shows that the universe will expand forever, which is, as this gentleman says, it is not the case, then it will contradict these clear verses of the Quran. Then I will say these verses cannot be from the Quran, because the evidence will not be. Okay, go ahead.
That's very Mutazilite.
Can I concede a point before we go on?
Okay.
No, I want to, because I like admitting when I've learned that I was wrong. When earlier I said that all people were descendants of Noah, I've been looking at the Arabic, and the word is khulafa, which is, as you said earlier, viceroys. So it says that...
Klingschor said that.
I'm not sure what it means, but it's saying he made us viceroys from after the people of Noah.
Klingschor said the thing about viceroys. Edip didn't say that, if I remember correctly.
No, he said it earlier.
I'm sorry.
Do we know what a Khalifa is? And you said, yes, we've heard of them.
Successors, coming afterwards.
So, Khulafa, what would your interpretation of that word be? Was that the viceroy?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to stop. The words are at least that flexible that it can.
Hear me. First, I want to make clarification. Noah could be a very early human population. Maybe humans all in that area. Possibility humans could be in that area, the early humans that led all these things. Possibility. But it is not worldwide things. That's clear to me within the context of the Quran. But Noah could be well after Adam. Another maybe genetic mutation happened, something more bodily and stuff different. Possibility. I'm not excluding that possibility will might come. But the time is not given, but only the event is told. And possibility if humanoids, Homo sapiens, they were one area, possibility. Okay.
Okay, well, that's no more from the panel. We have our first caller, and probably likely our last because we're nearing the end. But DPR Jones, thank you for joining us. Actually, but no sooner had I put you in the call than Edip answered the question that you said you were going to ask, and that was to give a prediction. Is that not right? But you can phrase it yourself now.
It's not entirely correct, although I have to accept that the Rationalizer was heading down the path that I wish to pursue a little bit further, if I may. What I find objectionable about all of the adherents, those that adhere to a good book, they all are wonderfully capable by using a tortuous semantic game to say, yes, but the truth was there all the time, if only we had known it. We've heard of this sort of nonsense from the likes of, amongst others, Kent Hovind, and also, I have to say, it appears from your guest. So my challenge to your guest is this. Give me a prediction that the Quran gives about a scientific discovery that we have not yet made. Then I will be convinced. But until you do that, all you are doing is, as I say, using a tortuous semantic game to say, yeah, but the truth was there all the time in the good book, if only we had just known it. No, I'm not impressed by that. I think it's utterly fatuous. Give me a prediction. That will persuade me. What's your prediction?
Okay. First of all, prediction will not persuade you because it's something not happened. And but when it happens, I don't know how you will interpret it. But I can give you a very interesting prophecy of the Quran that it took about 1400 years to come into place, and it is now in the place exactly happened. Very specific. It is not just Nostradamus like prophecies or something like in the Bible claimed, but it is very.
Can I pause you because I know time's running out? You're going to give me an ex post facto.
No, it is different than ex post facto, sir. I will give you something that you will appreciate it if you have a little bit objectivity, my sir. And you have right now your hasty generalization. You wanted to just pile me up with a bunch of them. That's fine. But here is my challenge for you. One, the Quran is very unique book compared to many other books. I give you just few examples. The word month, singular form, mentioned in the Quran 12 times. So what? Coincidence? Absolutely possible. The word day, again in singular form, occurs how many times in the Quran? Can you guess? Magic Sandwich Show.
I'm really not interested in playing a guessing
no,
game.
I want to give you, and then I will come
and
to
I
prophecy.
am not in the slightest bit surprised that you are failing yet again to give an answer to a straightforward question.
I am going to
just give an answer to the question.
Okay.
Because it has some background information. You will not even understand when I tell you. But if you get a little bit patient, few minutes, if you are really, I'm challenging you, I say, there is a prophecy and very specific prophecy. If I were you, I would spend even days and months because it is to prove me and many people change their religion from Christianity to Judaism, agnosticism, atheism to this exactly like mine. It is objective, 100% objective, and 100% subjective. Very interesting. Contradiction? Well, what? Very interesting. It depends on how you look at it. Now, it is objective because from different people independently can see the same thing. The word day, singular for my dear friend, occurs exactly 365 times. So what? Well, it might show just this truth. There are many examples. Huh?
I'm just looking at a concordance of, and I have 325 occurrences of the word yom.
I have the list. I argued with John Katz, and there was another guy. They were ardently arguing against this.
I will concede that. I will concede that.
I have the list.
Will you please answer my question?
Okay, DPR, settle down for a second. Let him come back.
Now, these two shows there is some, to me, these two alone, there are few more I can just show you, but these two more show there is some mathematical consideration in this book. Doesn't necessarily show it is divine, a human being can do. But it is, in how many books you can find the word month exactly 12 times, the word day 365 times. And then the number 19, it was discovered. It was first studied in 1969, and the person who studied the Quran, the statistical side of it, because there are verses of the Quran, letter, combination of letters. For 1400 years, no one understood the implication meaning of those. They made speculation. Ultimately, they say God knows the meaning of these. He was curious about it. He first time put the Quran into the computer in 1969, mainframe computers. He got statistical information. He noticed some interesting statistical peculiarity, that these are the denser, the highest in the chapters they initialize. The density, the frequency of these letters is the highest in the chapters they initialize. This is all he discovered. But he published his work. In 1974, he discovered that these numbers are multiple of 19, and boom, a secret of the Quran came into knowledge 1406 years, lunar years after revelation of the Quran. Now here is the prophecy. Chapter 74, I want you to open read it, but compare it with my translation, because there are a few verses, doesn't matter really how they translate it, still the fact is there. 19 is mentioned only in chapter 74, and the name of the chapter 74 is the hidden one. They understood, they tried to understand Muhammad was hiding somewhere, but the hidden one was secret, Mudassir. And 19 is discovered in this chapter. Put next to each other, 1974. Well, you can put it the other way, 74, 19. Another way is 1974 is the time of discovery with the most common calendar. If you multiply these two numbers, 19 is only mentioned in chapter 74. It is 1406 is the number of lunar years between the revelation of the Quran and the discovery of this thing. And the first statement of this chapter says, Ya ayyuhal muddathir qum fa'anzir, is 19 letters. It says, oh, the hidden one, come and warn. And the numerical value of this letter is exactly 1974. I give you just few. And exactly in this chapter, over 19 says in verse 30, and then the following verse describes what will happen. Exactly it is happening right now around the Muslim world, and they killed the guy who discovered this because of that. But if you read it, you will see a prophecy, the timing of it. There are many other details. Here I cannot, but if there was board and you were there, I could show you and you can verify it. It is not something that esoteric I'm making up.
Well, I'm actually glad that we covered this material, because we kept getting off, and it's as much our fault as anything else. We kept getting onto other topics, but that was really what I wanted to drive at, was the significance of the number of 19 in your system. But I will come to your defense,
Can I just please make this point? My questions
I know what you're going to say.
Been answered.
Yes.
As long as you don't shout.
Edip, even if everything that you've said is true, and even if it signifies what you think it signifies, what DPR was asking is there anything that provides a predictive model? In other words, if we have 10, 20, 100 things that after the fact of the discovery through our own investigation we found was in the Quran, is there anything have you or anyone else looked at the Quran and found something?
I had in my own life predictions I made to the people who were around me, and they observed these predictions. It took years to happen, but I didn't, how do you say, publicize to the whole world. But again, I don't have any other predictions that I can share with you. There is one, the end of the world. Well, everyone is making up prediction about that. And when it happens, no one will be able to falsify it or verify it. Therefore, it's no use. But this very thing, I wanted to take it seriously because it is not something about sitting to test event happen. It is very specific mathematical. It is not general that we are fitting it. Because
well, I apologize, I take it back. I think eventually we did get an answer, and the answer is that he cannot give any predictions. Thank you.
You're welcome. I will not be able to satisfy every skeptic who made skeptic as a dogma, skepticism as dogma. Absolutely. Okay. It's not possible to convince everyone.
We thank you for your call anyway, DPR.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye. Salam.
Dave, if you've got a second, could you look at chapter 67, verse number 5? I'll tell you what it says in my translation if you'd like, if you can't access it quickly. It says, "And we have certainly beautified the nearest heaven with stars, and have made from them what is thrown at the devils."
Yes.
Could you explain what that verse means?
I don't have explanation for it. I only know that there are certain things we don't know, I don't know, because there are creatures that I cannot see with my 5 senses. And
I know it's not the jinn part that I'm actually interested in.
Actually, okay, finish this real quick. But I mean, we're sort of barraging Edip, and obviously the last caller was pretty intense.
I'm interested because Edip did say that there's nothing in the Quran that contradicts science. And this is one that, to me, was immediately obvious. A very long time ago, people used to believe that all of the stars were the same distance away and approximately the same size, which is why they all seem to move across the sky at the same time. Basically, because they're so far away, we couldn't observe any parallax between the small distance of our eyes. And what this seems to be saying is the nearest heaven is beautified with stars, and we've made from them what is thrown at the devils. Now, the Quran says in a few places about there being stars being guardians and guardians in the sky to protect against jinns and stuff like this. What this looks to me to be is shooting stars are shot from stars to shoot at devils.
The Quran, if you look at it, the word devil is used in many places as metaphor for evil, for negative thoughts.
Well, let's just say at things.
Yeah.
The shooting stars are shot from stars at things.
This one you can understand as that is projectile like meteors. The meteors is not necessarily stars. It doesn't say stars. And then you can understand that way. But another understanding is that is metaphor. That means the design of the universe, the structure of the universe is like projectiles, is messing up the ideas constructed by people who wants to reject the design in those things. You can understand as a metaphor evil thoughts that consider this as all coincidence. The design of the things are like projectiles. Each of them are nullifying their ideas. That means the design in the universe. This could be understood, but this is a little bit in depth. I know it is beyond you and you will not accept this one. That's fine. But no. I could discuss with you something as I said, mathematical structure.
Really what I was interested in is,
yes, go ahead.
I'm not going to put it to you and say, look, I can prove this is wrong. I think it's wrong, but I'm interested in why you don't think it's wrong. It's not that I want to argue with you it's wrong and then you concede and renounce your religion. I'm just interested in how you see things. If I see something as being wrong and you see it as being right, I want to understand how you see it. That's what this is about.
Rujum, let me tell you one thing. Rujum means to reject, to excommunicate. It is used for Satan, Shaitan al-Rajim. God excommunicated, rejected Satan. It doesn't mean stone the Satan. It means these stars, they are masabiha, they are like lights. They are source of information. They reject the ideas, bad ideas, negative ideas, which is in the Quran. These ideas are shirk, or rejecting God's power, rejecting God's creation, and therefore what I understand is, as these are the signs, the stars, galaxies, they reject the negative, wrong ideas. I see it. And the light, in fact, is a letter, cosmic letter from stars. By studying it, we see many commonality between the elements here and there, and then we learn about they were one part, and many other things we can study from this masabiha, means the light. And through light, we know that the universe is expanded in another ways, proving the Quran, many other verses of the Quran. And therefore, I see it as supporting verses of God, these letters, cosmic letters from these stars and galaxies. But I know that you will have problem with this understanding because it requires a little bit careful reading.
Okay. Well, okay. On that note, welcome to the show, Aly Aly. What is your question for us or the guests today?
All right. So I actually have some practical questions to ask, and I wanted to point this at the guest. Actually, I see you're smiling. I just want to make sure that you know I am actually an atheist, not a Muslim, because the name might have thrown me off. The name may have thrown you.
Africanized atheist. Go ahead. You are very good. I wish all the atheists were like you.
Oh, wow.
I can live with you in the same prison cell. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Go ahead.
Right, so my questions, again, these are, and this is, I just want to kind of guesstimate where you are. You say you're a Quranist, which, as far as I'm concerned, is fine with me. What kind of God does your Quranism suggest? Is it the same type of, is it a smart God maybe? Is it a stupid God, or is he a loving God? Is there a hell, for instance? Basically, the question is, does it track closely with the traditional Islamic God, what you've derived from your Quranism, as opposed to, let's say, the Sunnis' notion of God, or the Shiites, or whatever? So what kind of God is this? Is it the same type of God? Hell and heaven and all that stuff?
That God says, the Quranic, the one that in the Quran says there is a purpose in life. God, the creator, decided to create agents, robots that have their own certain decision-making capabilities. I think this would be a great challenge for us, any creator. This is another challenge. God is manifesting his qualities. And personally, I have a problem with the idea of freedom of will. Still, I cannot square it. It seems kind of deterministic laws. I think that I am a robot, but I have delusion or false idea that I have freedom of choice. But
let me make this just a little bit more pointed, because there really is it really is just kind of a simple question with a simple answer. Basically, is this God, the all-powerful genius that engineered the universe?
Yes.
Okay, so that's the type of God you believe in.
Yes, a God who made you. You are the product of His design.
Okay, so then my question is,
are you genius, my dear
somebody,
friend? Are you smart?
No,
You're not smart.
I wouldn't say, I'm not. Certainly, I'm not egotistical enough to say it about myself. Let's say that.
You are very smart. I like that defense.
That's right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so my question. So then, if that is what you believe, that this genius God has created the universe and has for some reason decided to send us your book, I mean, the way I see it is, if this is such a genius of a God, why all the Muslims have been killing each other over this great piece of work and evidence that you've told us, just on disagreeing as to what it means for centuries now, okay? Newton, on the other hand, came up with his ideas for gravity a couple hundred years ago, and you can't find a sane physicist that doesn't accept them. So what I'm saying to you is is your God stupider than Newton? Or is he not as clear as Newton, for instance? I mean, because when you and this is I'm not saying this to be insulting. What I'm saying basically, it's a fair question, is it not? Why all the disagreements over such a great idea, such great truth that's so clear? People have been murdering each other's children over it for the last 1,400 years.
I think you are not thinking deep enough. You are very on the surface, and your reaction is very juvenile. If there is a test, if God, I am putting if, qualifying with if, Ali. If there is God, created a test, and this very test is a very interesting test. It gave us freedom of choice. Now, the very Quran
it may be interesting to him.
Hold on.
It can put us in hell.
Let Edip come back and fall.
Let me answer. The Quran doesn't claim that everyone will believe in the Quran because of the proofs in the Quran. Just the other way around. Says the very Quran will misguide those who chooses to be misguided, and will guide those who really intentionally seek the truth. Therefore, the very Quran, by saying I believe in the Quran, automatically does not lead you, because you may be just born in a country, majority of people around you believe it, and you join the bandwagon. Therefore, it is not that. The very Quran is very interesting, the language. For example, about 19, the verse about 19, if you want to take it as a hell, description of hell, you have a little wiggle room, which they did it in the past, to understand its description of hell. You end up with nonsense. God is someone claiming the Quran, word of Muhammad, human being, and the author of the Quran, God says, I will burn him in hell. If you want to choose that one, you do, which is majority of the Sunnis, not majority, all the Sunnis and Shiites, their concept of God is cannot answer someone who says this is word of God. فَقَالَ إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا قَوْلُ الْبَشَرِ. This is a verse in chapter 74. They try to understand that way. But I see it, wow, this is an intellectual punishment. It is not really burning hell stuff. It is an intellectual punishment to those who claim this is word of Muhammad. Now, this, for example, I want to respond to you, say why people have discussion about this disagreements. I discussed this 19 in many places, in universities, with mathematicians, with philosophers, in University of Arizona, in Kazakhstan, in Istanbul, and also in Turkey on TV, very popular show, talk show, and you can see it on YouTube. And it broke the record of watch that time when I had the debate. I had the debate with the former head of religious affairs, Turkish, Dr. Süleyman Ateş, and then a mathematician, from top university, Bosphorus University, a mathematician in cryptology. Three of us discussed this mathematics in the Quran. The mathematician was very kind of positive regarding this. He was not believer of this at all, but my arguments made sense for him. But this religious head of this top religious scholar claimed that Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the first sentence of the Quran, is not 19 letters. In front of millions of people, it is 21 letters. Now for you, I want you to be an outsider. Don't side with me and side with me. This is a simple fact, as simple can be. It has nothing to do with Quran. Any Arab children get it, and then write down Bismillah like the calligraphy in the Quran, they can count it 19 letters. Put in Microsoft Word, count the characters, letters, it will give you 19. There is no doubt. But now Muslim scholars, after the miracle of the Quran came out, they unify, they say, no, it is not 19. Some of them make it 18, some 21, some 22 even. Why they disagree? For you, I say, well, either this counting letters is stupid thing, there's no letter, you can say, or there is something interesting going on. The interesting thing, this is miracle, this is a sign, tests people. If you want to blind yourself, you will not see it, you will make up stupid stories. Exactly what you see. It is, I liken it, dear brother, like 3D holographic picture. Have you heard about it? The Rationalizer? 3D holographic pictures, like
yeah, that's what we call
random dots. Yeah. Through random dots, they are created.
Oh, random dot stereo. Is it random dot stereograms where you have to cross your eyes?
Yeah, this 19 miracle of the Quran, which I say 19, is exactly like that one. If you stay a certain distance, look at it, transcend it certain ways with two eyes, not one eye. Watch it, you may see the picture, and some people see it exactly the same picture, objective picture there. And independently, they can describe the picture without hearing each other, objective, 100% objective. But some people will come, say, I don't see. Especially some people like you try to make fun of it. Come on, these are random things. I cannot see it. Sir, you need to give a chance. You see, independent people saw the same thing. Well, let me look at it. You go far away, look at it, or come too close with your eyes, nose stuck to it, look at it, or close one of your eyes. If you want not to see it with prejudice, with things, you will not be able to see it. You will be able to make fun, really, and a bunch of you will make fun of those people.
Well, I'm glad you can judge me so readily.
No,
I'm asking you questions. I'm asking you questions. I haven't made fun of anything. I've asked you simple questions.
Made fun of it
no, I have not.
Let Ali come back, because you seem to be very far off the field from what Aly Aly was originally asking. I don't know if you were just getting back to something, but let's allow Ali to clarify what it was that he was trying to get from you, because it's obvious this isn't pertaining to what he was asking.
My simple question is that the people who believe that this book is so perfect, this great book has come down from the sky, and the best way this genius God could think to speak to us and tell us this was by sending a man in the desert a book whom people have been killing each other over for 14 centuries. That's besides all the other books that people have been killing each other over.
Ali, I got your question. These so-called Muslims, Sunnis, Shias, they are the betrayer, #1 enemies of the Quran. If Muhammad came today, they would stone Muhammad to death as an apostate.
Okay, so basically what we're saying then is that the further removed we are from Muhammad and his Sahaba and all that, the more we understand what this Quran was meant to be. Is basically the position that you're in. Am I understanding that correctly?
Because that's assuming actual accuracy with the Hadiths. When you say it's far from the Sahaba, you're saying we're assuming for your purposes that the quotations attributed to the Prophet and the Sahaba are accurate. That needs to be noted.
I'm interested in
is incorrect.
I'm talking about Islam historically here. Yeah. We're talking about now 1,400 years after this whole thing and all this war and conflict. Now we're going to say, no. All these people have understood it wrong. They've all betrayed the religion. Okay, let's all just follow so-and-so's interpretation that he came up with today. I mean, that
seems not a matter of interpretation. You can. Is there a possibility, as a book could be betrayed by people, and people could follow other books, which exactly what this is, and prefer it to the Quran? I give you just one example.
I prefer not to follow any books. I prefer to follow real evidence. I know,
but you are looking at it a very wrong way. But when you look at things, you want to kind of confuse people's deed, what they do, You want to equate with the book. For example, today's Christians are far away from the teaching of Jesus. You don't need to believe in Jesus, I'm telling you. Just look at the words of Jesus in the Gospels, which were written later. And this is a peaceful guy in one way and promoting peace. In fact, he was, for the underdog, he was not a capitalist. Far away, it was just the opposite. He was a socialist. He was criticizing the rich people stuff. But now, if you hear today's Christians, Jesus is a capitalist and he is kind of warmongers and stuff. Therefore, you cannot just condemn Jesus or look at it, well, there could not be things there, people misunderstanding differently. Well, anything can be abused by people.
I'm not condemning anybody. I'm talking about you are telling me that a genius engineer God who has created this universe could think of no better way than to send this vague book that has led people into such huge conflict for 14 centuries until somebody came by and told us, oh, no,
I
no,
understand
no, no.
what you are
All
saying.
these guys
Hear
are...
me, what is my answer? My answer, if that God wants to force everyone to believe, he could do. But if he wanted to test people with their innermost intention choices, absolutely this should happen. This is the best way to happen. That people,
why the sinister plan? Why the sinister plan?
Well,
why
call
the
it
sinister plan?
It is your choice. You can call it that way. You can call God any names you want. You want to oppose it, fine. You have this choice right now. But if you want to see it another way, which you don't want to see it, you have certain prejudices, you want to keep it that way, that's fine. It's your
Again,
choice.
I'm glad you like to judge what my prejudices are, but
But
let's stick to let's stick to the questions.
There is
Ask
another way of
questions.
understanding.
Regardless of my
prejudices.
prejudices. Okay, but regardless of my prejudices, these are legitimate questions, are they not?
Legitimate question, if you are able to appreciate another way of looking at it. If there is test, this is a perfect test environment because people, even having the truth, they are able to distort it. That's a fantastic test that your innermost prejudice, your interest will reflect it. It doesn't force. Even you are born in a Muslim country, people says Quran, you are able to go against the book because you are given the opportunity to do that.
Okay. Well, on that note, Ali, we have one more caller after you. Sorry, it doesn't. You don't sound very satisfied, but I do think we have to move on. Thank you as always for your contribution. Take care.
Take it easy, guys.
Now let's talk about something a little bit less heated. Hopefully, you said before that the modern day people we identify as the Sunni and Shia they're mistaken and that they would be opponents of Muhammad if he was today. Now, of the Quraniyun, and you yourself are part of the a group called the Submitters that are distinct from the two major sects, or any? Is that right?
Yeah, but I don't belong to any group. I don't believe that organized religion is a good idea because people create bandwagons, and I have disassociated myself with that group because when I see some of them, not all, there are fantastic people among them, but some of them fall into the kind of bandwagon stuff. They start losing their individual freedom of thinking for themselves, which was the basic message of Rashad. But after him, it shows repetition of the history. Some people start idolizing him, which is like a lab. I observed that how it could happen after Muhammad or after Jesus. People start idolizing, saying the things that they never claimed when they were alive.
Right.
And the same about Rashad. He never claimed to be, for example, innocent or infallible stuff, but some people try to carve an idol out of a human being who always claimed he's human being, who acted like anyone else. In fact, he said, this Rashad, if I die, cremate my body and throw it to the toilet so that after me, if they start worshiping me, let them go to the toilet. He was such a, careful about this issue, but I see human tendency that they tend to idolize. The older their heroes, the more bigger idol they become, like wine. The older it gets, more valuable. And it happens in all religions and sects. Therefore, I don't associate with any of these kind of groups. I have many friends among Christians. I like the Unitarian Universalists and Quakers, Friends of Friends. What's called? Friends of Service?
I'm not sure.
Quakers, they are very good. They are very socially active, very nice, peaceful people. And I have agnostic friends, and I don't distinguish people. I look at people, how they do in this world. I want to live in peace with anyone, regardless of their religion and ethnic background.
That's great. But you are, of course, familiar, even if you're not a member, you're familiar, you're affiliated. United Semitic International, it was founded by Rashad, excuse me.
Yes. When I was with him, he established this one, but he always promoted critical thinking and not exaggerating, following a human being. And but afterwards, some people entered the group and they started promoting certain ideas about Rashad, making him infallible and stupid things, which he rejected. And then I had issues with them. Then I had to leave that group because I found it is infected with the same virus, which is, according to Quran, is satanic, because idolization of humans is one of the major problems. It doesn't mean in religious arena, even in politics. When we start idolizing humans, past heroes, we start creating dogmas in their name, and those dogmas could be false, contradictory to our interests, maybe at one time maybe useful, maybe meaningful, but now not. Therefore, we find many dogmas throughout history, political or religious, cause trouble for humanity.
Now,
therefore, yes.
As far as the makeup of the Quraniyun, the Quran-only Muslims, obviously your primary antagonist notion is the Sunnah of the Sunni branch, but of course the Shia also have their own sayings. And then they all, they include a wide variety from Muhammad's family members, and not just the Sahaba as much as his shift. So what I know is how much is the break? Do you get both ex-Sunni and ex-Shia Quran only members, and what's the approximate ratio if you had to guess?
Well, I think that I didn't have ratios since the population of Sunnis are more.
Yeah.
Of course, there are more. Also, I am more very vocal, well-known in Turkey, and they are Sunnis. Therefore, there are several thousand people there, at least I know, but there are more because I discourage a kind of hierarchical organization.
Yeah.
I want them to be loosely get connected, maybe do some good things, maybe open philosophy clubs and those kind of things. But we have, for example, recently a group of rabbis, they noticed the mathematical structure of the Quran. They accepted the Quran, and they are now working on Old Testament, New Testament. They see a lot of problems under the light of the Quran. They have historical also some documents supporting that, and they are now working on that issue. And they have in Jerusalem and Amsterdam, they have some things. And also we have some agnostics and former atheists who noticed this mathematical structure of the Quran, and they accepted the Quran. I gave a sample of them in the end of my book, 19, God's Signature in Nature, some of their testimonies. These are not kind of people based on belief, just feeling, smelling, those kind of things. They reason, they find this is physical, verifiable, and falsifiable evidence. And they may have some personal experience too. I have also very strong personal experience in my life. But I know also how human brain can play with people, how we can be selective our memories and stuff. But when I verify also, it was in harmony what was happening outside, and it was also verified by the events that I predicted, and I had no doubt then. Therefore, both I'm intellectually and also spiritually, I am 100% convinced that this book is divine, but unfortunately very betrayed and misunderstood, misrepresented. But there is a time it's changing, 100%. Right now, the Quran will shine like it shined one time, and and there is a time will come and people will take more serious. When I challenged mathematicians, about 50 some mathematicians, when I sent this draft of this book to them, I said, look at it, here is a challenge. Whatever criticism you write, I will put there as long as it is manageable. And I didn't receive really a response except from one, and it was very, very dogmatic, and he even accepted to be bigot. I gave lecture in University of Arizona to a group of mathematics professors and doctorate students, about 30 of them, and I challenged them. I say, here it is, this evidence. I discussed this with Carl Sagan when he was alive. I don't know whether you know him.
Yes.
When
I've
I
heard
was,
of him. You know.
Yeah, he was an astronomer. That time there was no internet, at least we're not using. I'm talking about 1995. I was writing thesis for my philosophy, and then I wanted to discuss this numerical structure of the Quran with him because he had a book, Content, perhaps the only fiction, Contact, the only fiction he wrote. Later became a movie, The Contact.
Let me. We have another caller with us. Godless Libertarian. Thank you for joining us.
Godless Libertarian.
Yeah.
Gosh, you are dangerous people. In both ways, you are against me. I am godly socialist, almost a socialist.
Well, it doesn't matter. You've got Allah on your side. So
oh, come on, Rash. Come on.
I think I'll be asking a friendly question.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I just want to talk. I've been aware of the Quranism in North Africa, and pre-Arab Spring they were quite scrutinized, by Aman ad-Dawla and Mukhabarat and detentions, torture, all that stuff. Yeah. I'd like your opinion on post-Arab Spring. What do you think the Quranism are up against? The state of the community, is it better? Is it worse? I mean, of course, Syria is going to be worse, but do you see Egypt, Tunisia, Libya? Can you just speak to that?
Yeah. I know Ahmed Subhi Mansour. He was the one leading that. Al-Azhar graduate. He also met Rashad Khalifa. In fact, he got the ideas from there, but later he parted his way. And there are groups, in fact, we communicated with other groups too. I am also co-founder of MPJP, Muslim for Peace, Justice and Progress. We communicated with the groups in Tunisia and Egypt. Some of them were really atheist socialist groups. Some of them were Qurani. And also with the Occupy movement, we got in touch. We did, in fact, right now, the spokesperson of this will go to Egypt to meet some people there. As far as events of there, as overall in the world, I see the direction is going toward the message of Quran. The Sunnis and Shiites, they will lose. On internet, they are losing all the time. We have very kind of powerful theological argument, and not only theological, relate to this life in this world. Therefore, for example, I put videos out, amateurish videos out there. I receive hundreds of emails from people saying it changed my whole paradigm. They are so thankful. Some of them enemies to me. They say, we were so told about you that don't listen to this guy. He's a heretic and stuff. Thank God I watched one of your videos and then watched others and then I changed. Therefore, there is a great transformation right now happening. But there is a threshold moment. Until then, it may not be even visible. We have groups all around the world that receiving this message. As far as for Egypt, I don't know about the future, but at this time it seems bad because the Muslim Brotherhood, they are very fanatic in their following of Sunnah. Therefore, maybe temporarily it will be bad. If they bring Sharia there, it will be worse. But they cannot really sustain Sharia there. We see the Sharia Saudi version, Salafi version. We see Sharia Shiite version. We see Sharia Afghani version, Sunni version. All of them brought disasters and trouble to people. Therefore, I think that Egyptian people will resist this, and hopefully they will not be able to turn it to theocracy. And we are in contact with them. In fact, we are trying to go educate the leaders over there regarding democracy, human rights, and freedom of expression. And what Muslim world missing the most important is appreciation of freedom of expression, especially of those heretics. In Turkey, for example, the government, which is led right now by my former comrades like Tayyip Erdogan, president, or the Foreign Minister Davutoğlu, they were my former friends. They know me, they follow my things, but I am, how do you say, I am radioactive for them. Anyway, what I was talking about in, I forgot my train of thought.
Well, can you speak to, because I know in the case of the Sufi...
let me finish this one, I remember.
Increased number of harassment and hate crimes, is that happening to the Quran?
In Turkey, for example, this Tayyip is more religious. Unfortunately, he did some good things regarding put military where it belongs. Military was always interfering in the politics. But unfortunately, it seems now he's creating police state, another version of, again, very oppression, suppressive. And recently, some atheists in Turkey have been harassed by the government, and they are tried to be put in prison because of expression their criticism of Islam and Muhammad. And I defended these people through media and through my writings and videos. I say these people should be the most protected people because they are in minority and they are already culturally, socially, and even economically, they are excluded. If they cannot, some of them cannot even publicly say in their company that they are atheists. And therefore, if you are Muslim, you should be respecting, you should be supporting their freedom. And I supported them. Therefore, I defend your right to choose to be atheist, to be even obnoxious atheist, as long as you don't want to, you don't kill people for your things, you don't oppress. We can be even neighbors. No problem. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, it's too long.
No, just my question was about the frequency or increase or decrease since Arab Spring of like governments cracking down on Quranism or instances of hate crimes, similar to what what's happening to a lot of Sufi communities in North Africa. I mean, do you document this? Do you have do you have your ear to the ground as to what is the state?
Sufi Mansour is reporting some things, and there are also in Turkey there are some incidents. For example, the last 3 times I went to Turkey, I was detained briefly each time. They are kind of trying to, they are not coming much over me, they release, but they want to kind of show me that I'm going to a symposium there in February, and hopefully things will be fine. But again, there is this kind of rise of so-called Islam, and but I look at it as the United States and United Kingdom, your government, trying to take advantage of this, and they have changed the method of how to exploit the resources of these countries. Colonialism was initially go invade with country and then put your own governor there, correct? Which doesn't even know the language of the people, subjects. And it lasted for a while, and later it couldn't last because of the nationalism around the world. And then they changed, they started supporting the native dictators, kings in these countries. And that also life expired because people, through internet communication and knowledge, they started rising, and the cost of keeping dictators became too much. Now, the third wave of or stage of colonialism is through puppet so-called democratic regimes still manipulate the countries, their politics, and suck their resources. And I think that United States is, for example, Turkey. Some people say it's Islamists and stuff. No, Tayyip Erdogan and others, they're all in cahoots with the American corporations and stuff. They're basically opening the country for plunder, and all they do it is. And on Gini index, Turkey is one of the top worst countries. Gini index, do you know about the distribution of wealth? The worst one is Chile, and then Mexico, United States, Israel, and Turkey. I think Turkey will maybe in 4th or 3rd, but in top 5. Basically, this is the worst countries I consider, and the most immoral countries. When people, some few percent, got most of the wealth, the rest of the people are hungry or homeless or have trouble. And Turkey, unfortunately, in that situation. And but I don't know how long this will continue. I think there are certain dynamics the superpowers of the world will not be able to manage. And maybe it happens, and hopefully those countries will go towards a better representing people and more democracy. I see that direction, but it will be up and down, I think.
Okay, well, thank you for your call, Godless Libertarian. Take care.
Thank you.
And, you know, we're heading towards the 3-hour mark. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you in advance to everyone who watches us on YouTube. And I'd like to wish you a special Çok Teşekkür Ederim to our guest, Edip Yuksel. We, as I say with all of our religious guests, we not only appreciate you taking the time, but we acknowledge the courage and resilience it takes to come onto a show where you know that the panel is largely skeptical of your position.
I really appreciate it. In fact, I want to commend you for having this dialogue. I think the world needs, whether you are atheist, I am theist, or whatever, we need to communicate more, be able to respect our choices. We may passionately disagree. I fight over what I believe in terms of intellectual, but be able to dialogue and respect each other's rights and space. And I commend you for this. That's beautiful, and good luck.
Well, we try to provide an environment where we're not afraid to let things get heated. I hope you don't think you were treated uncivilly at any time. But if I were in your position,
this is my way.
If I were in your position, I'd much rather talk to a bunch of skeptics on the internet than a bunch of Sunnah extremists in person.
That's right. That's right.
Klingschor, you have an after comment before we go?
Oh, just to any of the viewers, if you want to follow us on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, you'll note if you're viewing this live in the banner above the blog TV that there is a link to our YouTube channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, our Facebook is facebook.com/The Gin and Tonic Show. Our Twitter is twitter.com/The Gin and Tonic.
Okay. Thank you, Edip. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rationalizer and Klingschor.
You can also search iTunes as well for the Gin and Tonic Show. We're on there as well. Before we wrap up, I want to actually just say something about Quranism. And although it only took reading the Quran to convince me it was a silly religion, I've got to admit it's a damn sight less silly without Hadiths. And, you know, and not only that, it's a damn sight less of a monstrous religion without Hadiths as well. For example, in the Hadith, you've got what are clearly end-of-the-world predictions that are going to happen shortly after Muhammad dies. And the people near him aren't going to grow grey before the world ends. And obviously, that makes it really silly. There's the riding on the back of a flying donkey, very silly. There's your prayers
kill apostates, kill adulterers, kill heretics.
Your prayers are annulled if a dog, a donkey, or a woman walks in front of you when you're praying. Which I think it's quite notable that a woman walking in front of you annuls your prayer, but not a pig. It doesn't say pigs annul your prayers. Yet there's stoning for adultery. This is one of the good arguments, I thought, that in Quran 24:2, zina, he talks about, is 100 lashes. The woman and man guilty of zina, adultery or fornication, whatever that, flog each of them with 100 stripes.
But that's okay because she's a warrior princess. She can take it. Good
Quran
night, everyone. Good night. No, end on that joke. Cut it. Cut it. No. Stop recording. Stop broadcasting. 25,
right? If you marry a believing slave and she does it, she gets half of the punishment. Now, in the Quran, it's saying 100 stripes, so a believing slave woman would get 50. But in the Hadith, they get stoned. So do they, stone her half to death? And how do they measure when she's half to death?
That's lovely. You should have ended on my...
The point is that many hadiths problematic and quite evil, you could say. Although in some instances the hadiths actually cap and make docile the Quran. For example, on whether or not you can beat your wife, Quran simply says and beat them, whereas the Hadith specify that beating is not a very good thing and that you should only do it lightly. So it depends. But for the most part, yes, Hadiths make Islam a much worse religion.
And you know, I wish he hadn't left, because I was just about to hit him with the combat kit for Quranists. And the combat kit is a list of questions. It's like, how do you know how to pray using the Quran alone? How do you know how much zakat to pay? Hasn't the Quran reached us through the same sources as Hadith? How do you know which way to pray? How do you know how many times a day to pray? How much can you beat your wife? In which order did the alcohol revelations come? There's all these questions. Do you pray towards Mecca or do you pray towards Jerusalem?
If you do your ablutions and then pass gas, do you have to do your ablutions again?
Mm-hmm. But of course, you know, there's all this stuff in Hadith, the silliness, and the stuff that people attack Islam with the most comes from Hadith. Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. Muhammad killed hundreds of Jews. Muhammad had a woman pulled apart by camels or horses. I never remember which it is. He had people killed for mocking him. He did all kinds of stuff that you know, you'd think it was an absolute monster.
Yeah.
And yet it's all in Hadiths. And I'd think that people would be far more inclined to dismiss Hadiths.
Yeah, well, the thing is, we had the same problem, or at least I had the same problem with Tom Holland when we had him on, and that is he treats all of the Islamic sources like it's a bowl of soup with a fly in it, and he's like, oh well, they have some clear flaws, so let's send the whole thing back. But those are the best sources we have, and besides, doesn't he know that the Hadith say to just dip the fly into the soup and then it's okay? I mean, you know, like I was saying, the only things we know about Muhammad are Hadith and the Tariq and these things, and yes, they're patchy accounts, but what can you do? They're the sources we have. That could be said of any history. That could be said of Thucydides and Herodotus.
When you look at history, though, you don't say that's all we know about him. All you can say is that 200 to 300 years after his death, we know that this is what they thought about him.
Yeah.
That's basically it. So there you are. Right, I'm finished.
Okay, good night, everyone. Take care.
No, hang on, everyone. No, please. Atheismo likes to go out with a bang, and he likes everyone to notice him at the end. So please, Atheismo, do come up with a very funny joke.
The floor's all yours.
I got nothing.
No, cool. I'm just.
I told you again.
Oh, actually, talking of predictions, you know, there's this whole thing about the Mayan calendar and the world's going to end in 2012. And it's not just that, there's all these different things happening in 2012 that suggest it. Well, I discovered an ancient people called the Adventists, right? And they've got this special kind of calendar. And the spooky thing is, it's good news and bad news. The bad news is this Adventist calendar only goes up as far as the end of December. So that could mean the end of the world. But the good news is, behind every door there's a little chocolate.
Thank goodness for that. That's consolation of the sword.